Let's get into it.
Yeah. Sorry, I use DSLR for my camera stuff, so I had to do the virtual cam thing, and it was a bit messy.
No, it looks great. It
Yeah.
look everything looks great on your end, bro. I'm excited that you're here today and here talking about your journey as a streamer and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
welcome on in, homie.
Yeah.
Let
It's nice to like have like a first time like face to face with you. So
Hell yeah, man. And
yeah,
I think it breaks a lot of barriers,
yeah,
when you get to
totally.
talk to, you see streamers, right? You see them online and showing their face and whatnot. And then the only way you talk to them is through text. And like,
Exactly.
it's so not genuine, man. So I
It's
love this
strange,
shit, man.
and it's so easy to like misconstrue and like not hear the tone, right? Like tone is
Right.
like the English language takes so many words from other languages, and we still can't figure out the right words to say something, So
I
it's good to do face to face, It's really nice. Yeah,
I trip on my words all the time,
yeah,
man. Sometimes I forget what I'm saying because I'm messing up on my words a lot.
right.
So
Yeah, it happens.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know what this is called the bonfire, and what the bonfire is to talk about a streamer's journey into their path towards expanding on social media, their roles in gaming, and how that contributes towards their mental health. So streaming, gaming, and all that stuff, and how mental health is kind of at the center of it, right? Because we use a lot of video games and a lot of what we do as our root canal towards uh, self care and helping ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So today we have L2. Is that what I'm calling you today, or am
You
I
can,
calling you something else?
so either is good. You could call me L2. A lot of
Mm,
people do, or you could call me Christian. That's my
okay.
first name. I'm totally comfortable with either online. So yeah, but most people know me L2 because they've known me as L2S Entertainment for such a long time for the
Mhm.
channel. So it's
Absolutely.
interchangeable. But so it kind of makes me sound like a droid.
I feel like we're all droids at a certain extent,
Right,
so
we're all plugged into the Matrix the last year and a half, haven't we?
oh my gosh. I can't wait to know what your journey was like for during this COVID
Oh
season,
boy.
man.
Oh boy.
These three COVID seasons.
Here
Holy
we here we
shnikes.
here we go.
All right, so I have two rules. Rule number
Mhm.
one, well, you don't have to worry about rule number two because it's looking at chat and you're not streaming right now, right?
Right.
Okay,
No, I'm
so
not. I'm not streaming on my channel. No.
yeah,
So
I'm so used to it. So don't worry about rule number two. Rule number one is pretty much if there's a question you don't want to answer, you are more than likely to say pass.
okay,
Hands down, I'm not going to ask any questions
cool.
because we want you to feel comfortable and we want you to be forces unleashed here, but we
Right.
also want you to feel comfortable. So
No, absolutely. I mean, it's always good to hear that, but I feel like I'm pretty open. So hopefully I can answer everything. Yeah.
good because we're gonna ask about
Let's
all
do
your
it.
deepest, darkest secrets, man.
Let's do it.
Nothing unchanged. All right, so we're gonna start out with the board, so with the demographics. All right, so you already did question number one, which is your name.
Yeah.
Uh, what about your age?
My age, I'm 32, and in a few months, well, no, yeah, 32, going on 33 pretty soon. So
Oh, when's your birthday?
I'm a September baby. So
You're a
yeah,
September baby.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right, all right. So we gotta celebrate that shit.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
gonna be fun. I did actually my That'll be my second birthday celebrated on stream probably. So yeah, because
oh
my
wow.
first my last birthday, I celebrated. That was the first like kind of weird, different type of stream I did, where it was kind of a variety day of things, and it was
Hmm.
because like hell, no one can celebrate your birthday with friends anymore. So I've been making a lot of digital friends. I'm just gonna stream my birthday, and at least I won't feel lonely, right? So
Hmm.
and you know what? It made all the difference. It felt like a wonderful birthday. So that was kind of cool that somehow this new experience gave me back an event that I thought was just gonna be just me playing video games or something. So,
That's
yeah,
awesome. So it felt like you're retaking back your birthday with
yeah.
streaming
Well,
and
yeah, especially since like I had gone through a lot of family, like doing holidays via video chat, right? My whole
right.
family, we're all very like affectionate and love hanging out with each other. It's like Italian and Spanish and Latino. So it's like no one wants to be by themselves on any holiday. Everyone wants to like be together in a giant group. And my family's been super respectful of needing to everyone stay within their own immediate families, and so there's been a lot of video calling and stuff. But that still sucks because we're all used to having that big number of people to make a big deal out of it and have fun that way. So I was really feeling that, oof, like I'm gonna have to figure out what I want to do. Usually I'm on my own for my birthday,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, because I worked at the film festival seasonally, and
Right.
it was just like, oh, I'll just go watch a lot of like new movies, which is cool because I get to watch them for free. But it's like, no, it was not even that this year. So what do I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of
It
those things.
it almost seemed habitual for you to ask, "Hey, Discord or Zoom call?"
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
like Discord, I started using it for for these interviews, but Zoom calls, man, I'm so used to them at this
Yeah.
point. It's like almost habitual to ask. So
Yeah.
that's that's really awesome that you were able to share your birthday on stream,
Right.
and you found a lot of love there too, right,
Yeah.
in your community and elsewhere. So
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome that you were able to relive that day to a full purpose, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
so, what about gender?
Um. Well. Yeah.
Male?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Race?
Um, I mean, I guess white. I'm very Mediterranean, even though I sound
Mm.
Anglo. So
We're just
I come from like a background of like southern and northern Italian, Spanish, and South American as well. Like one of the smaller countries, Uruguay.
mm.
So I have a mix of blood from everywhere. But I was born in Canada, and I am from Canada. So yeah.
So ethnicity, will,
Pan-European,
pan-European.
something
Let's
like
do
that.
it.
Who knows? Yeah, Mediterranean, European, whatever you want to feel. I'm, my mom jokes she's a tossed salad. So
Hey man, I come from a family of like everywhere, like
yeah,
from Middle East to Europe, from Africa, from holy
yeah,
fuck, man. So I
mm,
get that shit. What about
yeah.
your gaming platform?
Um, so tell me a little bit about that. You mean like what do I usually game on? I guess or
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Well, I used to be a big console person. Like that was I used to be, and then when I got really deep into Skyrim, um, I had a moment where my PS3 got the yellow light of death and I lost everything. and
No.
and I was so sad because I had put serious time into like my main character and a couple of sides. And I was like, you know what? I need to have control of that to be able to like at least back it up or do something. Cause I even backed up that PlayStation, but there was no way to put it on a PC or anything. And I was just like,
Right.
you know what? I'm moving to PC. At least I know that I can have a fighting chance of holding on to things that I really like in gaming if something goes wrong. And you know what? All I do is buy like because I still certain games I'm still used to controllers, so
Right.
I still have wireless controllers for some games, but most of the time I'm on PC now. I still play console for fun, here and there casually, but I'm very much more PC than anything. Yeah.
And we'll get more into what you did on console and
Sure.
what brought you to PC and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
hold your stories.
Yeah, yeah.
What about your stream platform? I'm guessing Twitch.
Twitch was the first and only stream platform I've been on. I mean, I've had channels on YouTube, but I've never been as consistent with them. I'm
Mm,
hoping to open up a channel under this name to get some specific shows VODs up that need VODs and little highlight reels of certain ones that need highlight reels. But for the most part, it's all Twitch right now, and that's been more than enough to do to deal with and manage. So yeah.
have you found it much easier to use Twitch other than like YouTube gaming or Facebook gaming?
I honestly, I really haven't given either of them a chance yet, simply because the way I got onto Twitch was basically a good friend of mine in real life.
Mm,
We became friends. It's funny, we like lived down the road from each other, and we've never met. And we went to the same high school, but of course we had like a 4 year difference in age. So when you're in high school, that means like they're just leaving while you're arriving
right.
right? So like you would have never met them and maybe vaguely seen them in the hallway. But anyway, like we met at karate class, and then we used to like hang out on the parking lot, nerding out about Star Wars all the time.
Mm.
And then when we finally decided we wanted to start hanging out outside of class, like the pandemic hit, and that was impossible. But we had started, it became that memes at 4 a.m. kind of friendship for a while, and like it was fun, and we got along. And so eventually he was like, "Hey, listen, I've been dealing with some stuff and wanting to really find a way to like to be with people again and be with the community again because now we're all stuck inside. I'm going to Twitch because he was a guitar teacher and he's really good and he plays metal guitar and he started streaming it. And
Oh,
he's like, I think you'd really have a lot of fun. It'd be a nice way to just hang out if you could just show up and see what I do, and at least we can still hang out a little bit afterwards and whatever. I'm like, hey, that sounds really nice. And I had a few years ago before that, like in 2016, a friend of mine had started streaming and just posted something on social media saying, "Hey, I started a channel just to mess around with gaming." And I looked at it, and Twitch was very heavy into gaming still. It was very solely gaming, and then a little bit of Critical Role, and that was about it. So
mm.
I was like, okay, there doesn't seem to be much variety here for me to stream anything. I don't know what I could stream yet. So and I had that was an alternative account that's still like signed into on my phone. But so I just never thought of it again. I just kind of didn't watch it or think about it again until he brought it up and he's like, "Hey, listen, I'm doing this. Come hang out." And as the more I watched the stream, the more I realized other people's streams and channels had different things going on because this pandemic had kind of opened up the scope of what you could do on stream. And I was like, I think I know what I can do that I already know how to do. And
Right.
so I think about a month into watching him, I started streaming too. He helped me get myself set up. I'd like to. Do you mind if I shout him out? Because he's really sweet guy.
Sure.
It's Ben G. Simon, and he's a metal guitarist. He does a little bit of like laid back gaming with his community. He's just a really he's a huge like mental health advocate
Mm.
and he's just a very positive guy and it's a funny contrast. No one ever thinks of like a metal guitarist playing all this heavy stuff and then talking about and then being very like sensitive and genuine on stream as well and talking to people about things going on. And it's such a cool space he built. So he kind of
Mm.
inspired me to get going on streaming as well. And so I'm very grateful for that because it's done a lot for me as well. So
And I've noticed that when you do game, you have like multiple streamers there
yeah.
gaming, and we'll get into that. I'm
Okay.
really
Okay.
like curious how
There's
you
a
do
whole
that because
reason for that. So
yeah.
yeah.
Good. I'm on the ball here.
Yeah.
So how many years gaming in total? Are you 32 years
I mean,
alive?
I would never say I'm a professional gamer, but I've definitely been gaming up for a long time. I think I could track it to my I think it was I can't remember which was first, but I didn't have a system for a very long time. But
Mm-hmm.
I did have a lot of neighbors who had like a Super Nintendo or something like that, or a Nintendo, and I would actually go and play at the house every day because they just lived down the road, and that would be
Mm-hmm.
the thing that we did. But my first system was a Nintendo 64. I still have it on my shelf there. It works like a dream still, and
Yes.
and I still play every once in a while, like holidays with friends that are from town. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
have Christmas or something or New Year's, and I'm just like, hey, come over, we'll play an old like GoldenEye or something like that on them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny to see it stretched on a big screen, all the pixels, all that. It's pretty funny. But yeah, like Nintendo 64 was my first console, and then my first computer game when I finally had like a decent computer, like early on in high school. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I got Age of Empires 2 when it came out, the one with like the one that was like medieval themed, because I'm a big like history and archaeology nerd. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the game that helped me connect with PC gaming a little bit. So I was very heavy into like that, and then much later Total War and things like that. So like PC gaming was mainly strategy gaming for me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Before I got into other genres in PC, most of the other stuff it was only on console.
Right.
So
So about like 25 years since Nintendo
probably,
came out.
probably, yeah, yeah. Like I was about maybe I was about 8 or 9. I,
Mm-hmm.
when I started like having my own system to game with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, or maybe 10 or 11, something somewhere in between that. Yeah.
We'll say how about 23? We'll meet you in
Yeah,
the
something like that's good. Because I mean, even when I didn't have a system, I was still gaming with friends. So yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
What about time stream? Like over the course of time, how many years have you been streaming?
Well, it's almost a year now. I
Almost a year.
June will be a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure it was June that I had my first test stream. The thing is, I download every VOD even if I have no intention of using it, just to kind of time keep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because quarantine at the very beginning really felt like almost being in a comfortable one, but almost
Mm-hmm.
prison like, in the sense that you wanted to keep track of
Yeah.
time, that how long you had been doing a thing for. And for streaming, it was only a couple of months since the lockdown in Canada. So it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I want to see like how I progress. I'm also in film and media for what I used to do for work. So
Mm-hmm.
tracking my progress and quality of stream and stuff is important to me, and looking back at the old stuff to realize how I can make stuff new but also keep it still feeling like me, so yeah, June I think was it, so it was about a year. Yeah.
And what would you describe? Well, I'm sure we'll get more into it, but
Sure.
what would you say your community lies in, like gaming and streaming? Where does that kind of that peak of or that apex of gaming come from?
At first I was hope like at first in my brain I was like, had just out before I started streaming, I had just gotten into the D&D space.
Mm-hmm.
um I was running a campaign with my two cousins, and well, my twin cousins, and then the little sister decided to join them. So then it was my three cousins, two brothers and a sister, and the younger sister, and they all play a campaign with me still. And it had already been almost a year,
Mm-hmm.
um, to this past October, that we had been playing that specific campaign. So I was getting deep into the D&D stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then I came onto stream, but with a very very strict sense of, I'm using this to give me a reason to wake up and
Mm-hmm.
do the creative work that I was working on before everything collapsed around me in real life. So I was working on a portfolio for digital art because I had just started working on my digital art, and getting used to doing it not on pencil and paper, but on actual, a stylus and a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm going to continue that journey. I got to do it on stream, it, you know, and it's going to be like a stream where it's basically just a dude getting work done, but you can come and do work with me too. I won't have any music in the background because I even have a little message in the mornings like, feel free to put music over me, mute my tab, like it's fine. Just come say hi, and at least you have someone doing work with you, so you don't feel like you're the only person that is validating your actions, so
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I felt I needed, was like a moment in time to validate my actions, that what I was doing something,
Right.
and was helping, because doing
Mm-hmm.
it alone is just feels the worst these days.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was doing, and for a long time I had maybe one or two viewers, and some of them were like those live robo viewers that like count as a view, but they're not actually there, and very 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 slowly, people started creeping in. But that was like the first idea for the streams. But I also had two other shows that I was throwing in the weekend. I would game,
Mm-hmm.
so the whole week was productivity, and then the end of the week, it would be okay. Now I'm gonna choose a game, but of course I'm like, I gotta be careful with money. Well, look at my Steam library; it's stuffed of games that I've either abandoned or never played,
Right.
right? So it was
Right.
like, okay, the point of this gaming stream is to get through the games that I haven't played yet until they're finished. Kind of like when you were a kid and your parents would give you one game, and then when you finished it, you could get another one, right?
Right.
So I went into the game streaming with that attitude, and that was kind of cool because that allowed people to see many different types of games. Because I have an eclectic taste. I like downloading some indie games once in a while too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big one was world building, because I was getting into actual script writing and screenwriting as a creative filmmaker in
Mm-hmm.
film and media. I had directed some small commercials, music videos. I had done some copy for a couple of small brands. Things were
Mm-hmm.
picking up before everything crashed down. So I was like, I got to do a writing exercise. But of course, I know a lot of D&D people like that stuff too, and I'm doing it in a fantasy world setting. So I'm like, how can I get people involved and want to come into the chat and make the chat active? And I thought, how about I leave the page blank and my Photoshop blank until someone tells me what they want to see in this world. And then
Right.
when they say I want this thing, I will write it in and it'll be canon. When they want an island that looks like this, I will draw it into the map and now that'll be canon. And it's like crowd sourced world building, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a slow climb, and now it's become something really cool. So
Mm-hmm.
the D&D world's really definitely been the heavier influence on my audience,
Mm-hmm.
over time, but I found a lot of other people that even aren't involved in that just need someone to hang out with in the morning while they have to get ready for the grind of work or whatever,
Right.
seem to be tuning into my morning stuff. My morning stuff picked up in the last week, like 3 weeks to a month, just simply because certain communities finally run into each other and people realize this is the kind of show they want to see, they need in the day just to have in the background, and that's basically what my morning show is. So it's a big mix, but yeah, D&D is the heaviest audience, I think. Yeah.
So with your schedule, you would consider yourself a part-time streamer with
No, I wish it was. Well, not that I wish it was, but I think that with the nature of things the way they are,
mhm.
the thing I am doing the most with the most time is streaming right now.
Okay.
When I began streaming, I went in with 100%. I said I am doing minimum 2 hours of streaming a day, and I streamed
Mhm.
7 days a week for a
Oh,
month, for about a
right.
month or a month and a half, and then I became affiliate around a month and a half in. Um, and then after that, I started building a more manageable schedule because stuff in real life was getting really tough, and there's a lot of attention I needed to give to family that I already was doing, but I needed to add a little bit more extra time to really dedicate to what was going on outside of stream. So there
Right.
was that too that I need to balance, and I think right now I've found a decent spot. So now it's 6 days a week,
Mhm.
and but not streaming twice a day as much as I used to.
Right.
Uh,
So
so
what's the time per day that you're streaming, like considering?
yeah, so Mondays I do 2 to 3 hours in the morning, and then
Okay.
two hours in the evening. My Mondays, I tried to hack my Mondays to be the most fun day possible, so that
Mhm.
I always look forward to my Mondays and the beginning of
Mhm.
the week instead of going, oh God, the next week is starting. So
Right.
my Mondays are my busiest that way. And then
Mhm.
Tuesdays, I just have my morning stream for 2 hours. Wednesdays are
Mhm.
completely nothing. Thursdays, I have my morning stream at the same time again. And then Fridays, I only have my second world building stream, which is
Mhm.
in the evening again. So, which is about an hour and a half or an hour after this interview. So, yeah,
So how about we say like 2 hours, 3 hours would be an average stream. I feel
two to
like I've
three,
seen,
2 to 3.
yeah.
Usually 2.5 hours is like my average. Even though like my schedule shows it's 2 hour blocks, it usually
Mhm.
runs a half hour to an hour extra, unless I'm doing some big special event thing or I'm on a
Mhm.
gaming weekend where it's very open when I'm gonna stop playing a game. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And in comparison to you streaming, what is your average gaming time in comparison?
My average gaming time, it's about 3 plus hours.
Three
Um,
plus hours.
I
Okay.
mean, I again, I to make myself available to people at home. I keep everything pretty open for my day so that my time that is gaming is like at night. Then I mean that's why I
Mhm.
call it the night owl game library. So like I give myself the excuse that I'm gonna be staying up late. I'm gonna be gaming and hanging out with some friends and just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the day is for other commitments. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really important is balancing
yeah,
your life out with gaming and streaming, and we'll definitely get into that.
yeah.
What about so in regards to social media?
Mm,
How often? What is your daily average use of social media per day? And this is including Twitch.
right. Well, I used to be like I have a few accounts on Instagram, and that was my
Mm-hmm.
main social media platform along with Facebook for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in the last 5 or so years, I went into spats where I was basically deciding to start take long vacations from Facebook, but I still
Right.
needed it for work purposes because it was in film and media in the gig economy of film in Toronto. It's important to be in touch with certain Facebook groups where they have calls out for certain people in certain roles. So that was important for a while because LinkedIn and filmmaking, at least for
Right.
production, isn't a thing. It's only for like the big distributors and people that are in offices and film that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
So
that does.
my main thing is Facebook for work, and of course now I'm like I don't feel like the circumstances of how sets are run is very strict now, but I still don't
Mm-hmm.
feel safe on set. So I realized, you know what? Things are getting really weird on Facebook. I'm going to keep my profile, but I'm just letting everyone know they're not going to hear from me unless they
Right.
the only app I have on my phone is Facebook Messenger because it actually is quite a good messenger platform. I'm like, if you
Mm-hmm.
needed to contact me via Facebook message me because I'm not going to hear any notifications, nothing. I'm done with it, So I stay off of Facebook very easily now. I check it maybe once every 2, 3 months. And so it was mainly Instagram, and I still once in a while post on Instagram, but since Twitch hit, it's basically been Discord and Twitch, and it has
Okay.
been a very easy and busy enough place that I don't really worry much about the other social media things unless I feel like I really do need to post something. And eventually I'm gonna have
Mm-hmm.
to go back to Instagram in a bigger way once I want to grow a bit. But yeah, for now I there's enough to manage as it is. So yeah.
So we'll say like another hour or two per day for your use of social media
I
aside
think
from
I would
yeah.
say yeah. If we're counting, I mean, I would say it is. If we're counting Discord as a social
Mm-hmm.
media
Oh,
platform, which
absolutely.
absolutely is, then yes, a lot of I wouldn't even say 2 hours. I would say a lot of my time is on Discord. So
So yeah.
because it's on my phone too. So even when I'm
Mhm.
not on it, I'm checking it to see what's up. So yeah, it's a big part of my life now.
I'll put you down for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So the number of platforms you used before you started streaming.
The number of platforms would be Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, but not as a like VOD or anything. Just
Right.
watching videos.
Mm-hmm.
I would say three. I really am not a big Twitter person. I have a Twitter account for my business, but even my business, I don't really use my business account for that any as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Doesn't seem to work for who I'm looking for. I guess
Right.
my way of promoting myself is very visual, and Twitter used to have something very similar to Instagram in the way you could post photos and things like that, and it kind of scaled
Mm-hmm.
that down once Instagram took off. And so ever
Right.
since that switch happened, I just stuck with Instagram, and that was it. Yeah. So
I'm like the complete opposite. I used to use
uh,
Twitter back in the day, and now I use Instagram.
yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm totally on Instagram
Yeah.
instead. Yeah, yeah.
So, what about after you started streaming? So now,
Oh, I
currently,
don't
how?
use it still. I still don't use it. I definitely intend on building a Twitter account eventually,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't know how to navigate it well enough
Mm-hmm.
for Twitch purposes.
Right.
Yeah,
Just in general. Just in
yeah.
general. How many platforms do you use currently?
Instagram, Discord, and Twitch. So three now. Yeah.
So three before and three now.
3 before and 3 now. They've just shifted which.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so weird because I'm so used to seeing people use more social media
yeah,
platforms now that they currently. That's awesome, man. I'm glad to
yeah.
see that you've alternated just based on business purposes, what is working for you and what's not,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
where it's like that connection towards social media, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. So you just passed the boring stuff. So
Yeah.
now we can actually talk about everything into detail. I was just trying to get through all that boring
No,
crap.
that's totally fine. No, actually, feel free to interject because I find I talk in circles sometimes. So feel free to like
Li-
just cut right in if you need to.
Listen, I love because
Yeah.
usually the demographics people actually start going
Right.
because they feel like we have to get the story out now. I just want to get it out, but
Right.
it's actually like it's a build up to that story,
Hmm.
right? And I know you know exactly what that feeling's like. You know, you
Yeah.
have like the knight that's like getting his like crew together to go fight the dragon. Like
That's
that's
right.
what we're about to do. So now
Yeah.
we're getting into before you started streaming. So
Right.
before you started streaming, I know you talked about Nintendo 64
Hmm.
and playing GoldenEye and all that stuff. What really inspired you to keep gaming?
I mean, GoldenEye was the one that brought me together with friends because it was multiplayer. Also, Super Smash Brothers, the original one. Those two were great because you could go to your neighbor's house and play with them and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And you would get competitive and just start chirping each other and fun stuff. But the games that I am an only child, so
Mm-hmm.
the things that really hit me were the things that were more fantastical, had way more imagination, like exploding out of them, like Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Zelda, like Ocarina of Time, was like a revelation to me that a game could, like, just walking through Hyrule Field as this little kid, and I felt like I was 8-year-old me, in that avatar doing that adventure because the world was so big around that character that it really made you feel alone when you were alone and in the company of good or bad people when you were in the company of good or bad people in that game. So the dramatic tension and the way it built a story through the game, I was sold. I was into it, and so that was my first kind of idea of what. Technically, it's not a role playing game, but it feels like a role playing game in certain
Right.
ways because of the fantastical nature of it and the idea of being able to walk freely around, even though there is like a clear narrative order to things. So, yeah,
So that was like the first taste of an open world game where you
yeah,
felt like you were that character doing all these missions and
yeah,
those missions. It's kind of like I forgot what the mask guy is called, but it's like putting on a different mask for a mission. Like you're
yeah.
going out, you're doing this, and then you come back and you help somebody else out, and
That's
that's
right.
like revolutionary
Yeah,
for Nintendo 64. Absolutely.
yeah.
So
And to
yeah.
make a game that was very much stuck in a top down look for so many years, and I love the
Hmm.
top down versions. I even went back after playing Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask to actually Game Boy Color when they had Ages and Seasons out, and I never played Ages, but I played Seasons, and I loved it because again, that was. I hadn't even played the first Link to the Past yet until I got an emulator back in like way ahead in time in university. But like
Hmm.
Seasons was my first top-down Zelda game that I got to finish, like from beginning to end, and that again
Right.
was like one of my favorite games of that kind. It was so rich and big, and I'm like, this thing is in my hand, and I can play that. It's just impressive as hell. Yeah.
Was when you were growing up, did your parents read you stories a lot, or did they like make you read all these books that you kind of got into that were all story based?
Absolutely. My dad's like the salt of the earth Italian guy.
Hmm.
He was a plumber.
Hmm.
So let's get out of the way. Yep, very stereotypical.
Oh
And
yeah.
then he built his way up. He worked hard, built his way up to becoming a building inspector for the city.
Mm.
So he's always very much, very, very, you know, um, employment driven, work driven to support family. You know, the old school mentality like his parents before him.
Mm.
My mom, on the other hand, is the more creative type, is the one that would be in theater and drama and those things when she was younger, and even when I was younger, she was in the community theater and all that sort of thing. So she was the one most of the time, because my dad worked a lot, worked late. She would be the one to read the stories, to be like, "Hey, you should watch these old Hollywood movies with Romans and knights in them, or whatever." You know,
Right.
she, you know, her and her brother, my uncle, introduced me almost simultaneously to Star Wars. You know, and of course, I read the Harry Potter books with her when they were coming out, and it was all this, yeah, all the swords and sorcery. The Arthurian legends was huge for me. I was a big history nerd because of the medieval ages, and
Mm.
so anything medieval I stuck to. So it was a ton of the Legends of King Arthur, Don Quixote, like old I felt like, I don't know if you've seen Modern Family, but when I saw
Yeah.
like the first season with Manny, I
Mm.
laughed my head off, because I'm like, a lot of that was me as a kid. Like
Really.
I would drink coffee in the morning, and
Mm.
I was like a little old man with a lot of my tastes and opinions, and like just kind of a romantic in a very, in a way that he's not really aware that he is who he is, you know.
Mm.
And I definitely connected with that because I was very much like that as a kid. Yeah.
It's like it's like you didn't know who you were, but you knew exactly who you were
Yeah,
growing
yeah, I
up.
was
It's
already
like
decided, and I mean, yeah, it was pretty funny how that worked out. But you know, I think I realized how much I needed to lean into being myself early, because I had gone through a lot of big things in my youth, like bullying, some very severe bullying. So it was tough to try to get along with other kids because they wouldn't let me. So it's like, why bother then, right? If that's just going to be the result, why bother try, you know? Why not just do what makes me happy when I'm come out of school and I don't have to worry about those people, you know? And I found that through the sport of fencing, and and my hobbies. So yeah.
well, so you would say bullying kind of influenced you to start doing these new things like fencing and
I think I mean, I would say fencing didn't like, I wouldn't say that the bullying inspired that, but I would say finding out what drove me,
mm,
instead of trying to figure out why these people were acting this way, and how I could make my life better out and socially, just letting go of that and being like, screw this. What do I want? What do I like? And this is me at 8 years old. Like, no
right.
kid that age should have to go through having to that thought process, you know, like they
Hmm.
should have to evaluate where they want to be, you know, that early. You should be just like screwing around with your friends, riding bikes like in Stranger Things. Like, and I still, you know, I wasn't like completely out of touch, you know, with having friends and whatnot. I literally had a handful of friends,
Hmm.
and we were kind of like that. It was the late '90s. We rode around on bikes and wouldn't come home till the sun went down, and you know, it was fun. But yeah, it was very much me figuring out, okay, I don't know, like I'm kind of stuck in this situation. I got to figure out, you know, I know what I like when I'm home, but what, you know, what else can I do to get me excited about new people, and you know, how can I communicate with people better that aren't these people? As
Right.
I stepped into my elementary school, and and me being kind of that Manny mind, being like, these ignorant kids, you know,
Right.
like this
Exactly.
little weird, like not an adult, but the thinking like an adult, right? And like, and so I, you know, I found, you know, my mom helped me find. She's like, there is a sport where they sword fight. Would you like to learn how to do that? Like, I don't know if you're old enough to do it, but we'll see if we'll see if they'll let you practice with them, or at least come and watch and see if they're okay with it. And I'm like, oh my god, that exists. I wish you had told me when I was doing soccer for the last 4 years, and I hated it because I wasn't a very fit kid. I was like, a short, tubby Harry Potter with the glasses and everything. And it was just not I was probably the worst player on there. But my dad's Italian. He's into soccer. He knew the kid needed to get fit. I don't blame him for that. So, I was allergic to ragweed and asthmatic, and I was stuck in a sport that was the worst one for both of those
Yeah.
things. So I was not built for soccer, but yeah, eventually I found fencing, and that changed everything. That changed
It
everything. Yeah.
seems like it's so apparent to see that you start off in soccer and then you veer off into like something else and
Hmm.
like
Yeah, like the complete
fencing.
opposite. And also,
Yeah, exactly.
great thing, it's a one player sport. No one's gonna blame you for screwing up but yourself. So, and I like
Mm,
that. I prefer to give myself criticism and work on myself, or have one singular mentor focus on me to tell me what I need to do, and I know they're experienced enough for me to know that opinion is valid. Because since before then, I only had my peers to tell me how terrible or dumb or
mhm,
invalid I was as a person, right? To bully me into
mhm.
that. So this time I had this badass, USSR defected Russian coach to tell me that, and I listened to him, and I loved him. I love him dearly. He was the guy that built my confidence, and made me the competitive fencer, and then the coach that I am. So yeah.
So you found the team sports weren't really working out for you, but you found this one sport that kind of had it all. Like it had that medieval touch.
Yeah.
It had that individual touch where you were. It was just you and all the responsibilities and all. I would say it disciplines the mind because you have to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be vulnerable to saying, okay, this is me. I'm the team. I have to go out there and I have to do me. So
That's right.
and then you connected with your coach and you
Mhm.
found somebody who was kind of a role model to you.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your relationship with your coach.
Okay. So, um, of course, this is before the internet was easy. This is before Google existed.
Right.
Kids.
Damn
So
kids.
kids. No, like Google was not wasn't a thing yet. I was 8 years old. This was the early '90s. So it existed, but it wasn't easy to look for stuff there. So a lot of it was still done through the phone book, through hearsay, through, I know universities do this. Do they have a public program, right? So my mom was looking everywhere. She wanted
Hmm.
a place where I could get a nice, well-rounded view of the sport, right? So
Hmm.
some clubs only did one of the weapons, other clubs only allowed adults, things like that. Eventually, one of the universities in Toronto said, "Oh, we have our club does have a varsity section, but we are also open to the public to come in and learn." And I'm like, and she was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, cool. Well, how about my kid? He's 8." And they said, "Well, we don't know what the coach will say,
Hmm.
but come in, come watch, a lesson, come see how everything works here, and see if we'll ask him when you're here and see what he thinks, and or what they think." Because it was the beginners program and the main competitive coach with them.
Hmm.
And so that's what we did. Now we live about, with bad traffic, 2 hours away, but that's normal for a commuter family. Our family always commuted to work into the city. So we went there, and he was there. Um, he was there with his. He had just recently come to Canada.
Okay.
He already had another job on the side. I think he was working. His family ran a gas station, and I think he helped the family, his son's family, work at it. So this was very much like his thing that he was starting out for him. Um, but his son was there too, and his son was very clearly the one that was helping to translate things that his father couldn't translate.
Hmm.
Um, so he was giving a lesson, private lesson, to one of the other students. he was shouting, and there's a lot of slashing and crashing of blades and whatever. There's a lot of Russian, and the guy's just like shaking his head, like I must have done something wrong. And there's a bunch of beginner fencers being led by an older coach, an older Japanese coach, and she was quite a tough cookie, but she was really cool. And and we were watching, and I was like, this looks really cool. And then when he finished his private lesson, he looked across the gym because he had noticed me during the lesson, and he was talking excitedly to his son. And him and his son came over, and his son goes, so my you know my father wants to know how old you are. And yes, my mom says, oh, he's 8 years old. So he translates it, and then he gets more excited, and he goes, so he wants me to tell you that, well, when he was in Russia, you did not compete to qualify to become national team. You would be chosen to be trained to become national team. And my father was the coach that would go to all the villages, and he would choose the children who would become national team. And he says he would never choose a child above 10 years old. So he says your son is perfect, and he wants to train him. Can you imagine? Okay, now I haven't really gone into the whole bullying aspect, but
Yeah.
up to that time, I had been bullied, been told I was terrible at things, um, and like there was times where like my head was being dunked in like deep puddles of mud, and my head was sat on while that was happening. I was being beat up in the playground, like it was terrible for no
Mm,
reason, right? And
yeah.
this was in the era when WWF was a big thing. So
Hmm.
like I was basically the rag doll while they wanted to try these moves on people.
Hmm.
And so for someone to finally, for this big tough old Russian guy to be there, all excited to see me in a room of adults and say, "You're perfect. I'm gonna train you," meant the world. So
He must have seen something in you that he really like that really appealed to him, not even just from a physical standpoint, but
right, definitely
like
not a physical standpoint, because
yeah.
again, tubby Harry Potter, like, but but like I cannot express to you enough, and I think it hits me a little harder telling that story now because just before the pandemic hit, he had passed away, um, and so that's really that's a big thing, but had a huge impact on how I saw myself and who I became after that. It seemed like everything changed after that. So yeah,
Very I'm sorry that he passed away recently, and to lose
he,
a role model, that's
yeah.
significant. That's
I
significant.
must have met him in his late to mid 60s, I think. So um yeah, he was probably late late 70s, early 80s when he passed away. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was some sort of cancer, but yeah.
Did you reach out to his son and say
Oh,
like,
I was made aware of what had happened because by that time I had been very heavy into coaching and other things. Life got in the way, and I had been in different clubs as a coach and not necessarily competing. So I wasn't taking lessons from him. I hadn't been in touch in at least 2 years, and and it was a shock because I these terrible things happen in life where you don't think you're taking it for granted, and you're going to get a chance to go and say hi or go visit wherever he's at, and then you never get a chance. And so it just kind of happened that I got this news. But I'm still in touch with his son, but I was made aware that this happened, and at the very least got to go to the funeral, and actually the family knew about me and actually asked me to be a pallbearer at the funeral on the day. They didn't even ask, like it was just in the moment. I was like, holy shit, yeah,
wow.
absolutely. So that was a big deal. That was a big deal for me. And like, I'm not. It's been a weird time emotionally to I don't get emotional about a lot of personal, like, deaths in the family very often, even though, like, inside I am.
Right.
Outside, I'm not very often, and it's a weird thing. But for this person, I couldn't, it was tough. It's very tough to keep together. Yeah,
So when you were growing up and you were trying to kind of figure yourself out, even though you kind of knew yourself,
kinda.
right?
Yeah, kinda. I
Kinda,
was working.
kinda.
I was working on how I fit into how, like, when's the point gonna come that being myself is gonna be something people are excited to meet, you know?
Hmm.
Not that I need people to be excited to meet me, but when is it gonna come to the point where where I'm gonna be a social situation and it's gonna feel like everyone else is feeling when they're in a
Right.
social situation? Because I always feel like, I'll be the butt of the joke or something, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And you must have had to deal with so much resilience to be able to kind of push past the bullying and everything when you were younger. What was your kind of what was your perspective of like stress and anxiety?
During that time, obviously, I'm a kid, going
Right.
through the going through the big changes like growth spurts, puberty, all that stuff. Um, and of course, the school system and their response to bullying was non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
There was none of it. Most of the time, if I would tell on my, tell on my, abusers, the teacher would, would either say suck it up or you'll be stronger for it,
Right.
or they would go and talk to that person but then nothing would happen, or they would just throw them in detention. But again, those are mundane things, you just get out of the way. And then other times when I would finally decide I'm going to try and defend myself, I would get told on, and then I would get in trouble. And I was just like, okay, so we're in the office with these kids that I've told you over and over again are beating me up. I have the black eyes, and
Yeah.
all I did was trip him to get to have enough time to run away. And all of a sudden, I'm in the office. I still have the black eyes here. I'm looking at you. You're looking at me. He's got a sore bum. Like, like, are you really weighing this well? Like, I had lost all care for authority at that point after so many years with the same people too, the same bullies. It was no news to these teachers and the supervisors in the playground, and I was just like, I don't know what else to do. So it was just kind of these, I don't give a shit anymore, and I'm just gonna say how I feel about these people because I've had enough, and you guys aren't doing anything about it. So my
Yeah.
process was starting to just, I took a note from, like, managing the anxiety. I took a note, unfortunately, but also fortunately, um, from old sword and sandal movies from the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I was brought up on old, like, Roman movies like Ben Hur and The Robe, and I could name a million, but like El
Mm-hmm.
Cid, like all these are, beautiful costumes, beautiful sets, lots of sword fights. But there was, I don't remember which movie it was, but there was a phrase that one of the senators or one of the emperors said, and it was, I endure Roman doors. And that that hit me as a kid, to see, someone who saw beyond their own body, and who saw a greater purpose, as nationalistic as it might sound for that particular line, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of the implications now that we know of toxic masculinity, blah blah
Right.
blah. But like, that phrase, despite all that, in that time that I heard it and felt it, got me through the bullying, saying, if I can endure this, this is nothing. If I can endure this, the greater purpose of whatever is coming is, it was basically a very stoic way of saying it'll get better, without
Right. Pretty
knowing
much.
that was what it meant. It was basically saying, let's do this for me. There is something bigger after this, and I just I just need to get there and just fight to survive through it. Um, and so I endure, Rome endures became kind of the internal mantra of getting me through that. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, you found peace within the like even watching movies, reading these books, like you found things that connected with you that helped you get through a lot of the struggles that you were dealing with, well, in school or where else. And it seemed like that kind of going back to what you were saying about lack of respect towards authority. You kind of gained that back when you
mhm,
met this guy,
yeah,
when you met your coach. It's like one part of your life within school system, you felt kind of isolated and alone because you felt like you were dealing with everything all on your own. And then you found fencing, and then like you were not alone anymore. You felt
right.
like you had some support.
And
Um,
the cool thing about fencing, real quick, is that because of the time I started it, there wasn't a lot of kids. I was the
oh
only
wow.
kid in a club. There were kids, but they were in the areas where fencing was more popular in Canada, and
Hmm.
Ottawa and Quebec. But where I was near Toronto, it was all adults. So all of a sudden, I became friends with lawyers, doctors, like students of different type subjects. Like
Hmm.
I got to nerd out with them about history and stuff because that's what I was into already, and I had even my friends didn't have that in common with me. So I was just I couldn't wait to go to fencing practice because I had these cool friends that were older than any of my other friends that I could actually talk to, and they're actually really excited to see me too because they're like, wow, this kid not a lot of kids know about this stuff. This is neat. So I found a social circle, as strange of a dynamic as it was, with people that could jive with what I was interested in, and that were encouraging and supportive in my athleticism and in my sports journey. So by the time I would go back to school, from the ages of 8 till about 14, with the rest of
Hmm.
elementary school, it was a breeze to deal with bullies because not only was I going through my growth spurt, but I also had this sport that everyone knew I did. And it was interesting and different because no one had even seen it on TV. And they're like, "Oh,
Hmm.
you do sword fighting now?" All of a sudden, it was this curiosity and fascination, and it made somehow that weird detail made me less weird and made me like everyone thought that's interesting. Oh, he's away this weekend on a competition and he had to miss Friday. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So all of a sudden it became a thing because I lived in a small town, and that kind of helped build my confidence into getting and eventually, by high school there was no bullying at all. Everything was fine. Yeah.
So I I want to ask if you played gaming competitively, but I feel like that doesn't seem like the case here.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't play gaming competitively. Sports, yes.
Yes, and that's
Gaming,
what I want. Yeah.
yeah.
So tell
So
me a little bit about that.
okay, so when I think it was around 2001, I was already competing, but I was competing and just sort of see. By the time I was about 9 or 10, I did my first fencing competition. I started when I
Hmm.
was 8, and when I was about between 9 and 11 years old, I started competing. And by the time I think 12, when I was 12 or 11, I'd qualified for my first national competition. You have to have enough points to go to the
Right.
national, for it to be worth it to go to a national competition, right? Like usually anybody can go, but it would be a waste of money to fly over to another province and do all that if you didn't qualify. So
Right.
um, they said, yeah, you should really bring your kid there and whatever. So I said, so my parents let me go, and it was awesome. And I was like, I am competing using my skills, like for the first time, even though I'd been in soccer tournaments as a little kid in those leagues and things, I'd never felt like I had any agency as an athlete, or any choice in what I was doing on the field. And being in a one player sport, that just revolutionized my thinking of what it meant to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
because again, fencing, it allows you to be in your head, to train yourself, to work on what you need to work on. It needs to be done through you. The coach can only do so much. So I really, 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 I got the bug, and I wanted to go to everything, and um, that was it. So I was competitive around for years. Canada, the USA. I did it when the World Cups would come to Montreal. I would go and compete. I did about at least two of those, and then I did North American Cups in the United States, and then there's a multi-sport event in Canada for amateur sport called the Canada Winter Games, or
Mm-hmm.
the Canada Games. They do summer and
Right.
winter, and it's a multi-sport event. But instead of different countries, it's the different provinces all competing against each other. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was one of my big moments, because I got to be on Team Ontario for that one, because there is a team event in fencing you can do, which is sort of like a relay thing with the score stays the same, but it increases as everyone in each team gets a chance to fence each other once.
Right.
Uh, and the score scales up, but also keeps the same. It's like a relay, it keeps the same and it scales up a little bit. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time you get to the 45-point cap, whoever's behind has to play catch up, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun, and it's still individual because you're still one on one with people. So it's cool. So I caught the bug hard, and I had been competing right up until through university, and then I started coaching just before that, and then because I went to the Canada Games, they had invited the former team members to help train the new people qualified for the following season. And so that was my first taste of coaching. And then I started doing that a little more often. I did several camps with them. I was still doing national competitions and whatnot, but I was getting into coaching a little bit more. And after university, someone followed up with me and wanted me to be the head coach of the club. And
Mm-hmm.
so out of university, I was the head coach of a club, and
Mm-hmm.
coached a bunch of weapons. And then just before the pandemic, I had one club that was a competitive club that I was training a group in, and then I had started my own program in my own town's Parks and Rec for beginner fencing that I was running as well. And the day that they closed the place down for shutdown was the final was during my lesson day. So as soon as the doors closed behind me, the notice went on the board. It was like something out of a movie. Like the notice was being pasted on the window as I was leaving the Parks and Rec Center. I was like, wow.
No, no.
Uh, it
Oh
was
my god. I'll
dramatic.
tell you, I didn't. That's insane, bro. It's like walking away from like the dream. It's like so symbolic to have the doors closed behind you
I, I
as you're walking away.
I swear, being in film and media and having moments like that happen to you feels stranger than fiction, because you're like,
Right.
has this happened in a movie yet? Because this feels like something out of a movie. Like it's too dramatic, you know. That way, like the whole thing with my coach. Again, that's how it happened, and I'm like, did that act like how does that stuff like that actually happen in life? It's crazy. Yeah.
I I'd be curious. Would you be combining like film and what's it called? Film and like fencing and doing like a documentary or like doing like a video like a movie or like a tribute or whatever?
So I, as a kid, because it was so unknown as a sport in Canada, there was no real
Mm-hmm.
public, there was no government funding for our athletes or anything like that. Um, there
Mm-hmm.
was a there was a need for me to be like, because all the kids were interested in what I was doing all of a sudden, and everyone thought that was really neat, even the adults, people in my family and whatever. I was like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I am really, I really want to give back to the sport, but I'm just a kid. What do I do? And I thought,
Right.
you know what? Like, I want to make sure that if I did well in an important competition, that maybe my local paper doesn't have a lot of news. Maybe
Right.
they want something interesting. Maybe fencing is interesting enough to be in the local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So would, my mom and I would do little write ups. Well, she would mainly do it, and then she would send it over to the local paper, and it was kind of a thing for a while where I just wanted it there, not because for me, but rather to like show people, hey, fencing exists. Like there's ways of doing it. Like come and ask me about it. I could, if you want to do it, I could tell you where you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually there was some TV channels in Canada. There's like a local media station for a lot of the Italians and Chinese.
Mm.
Like they share different time slots on the channel. They used to
Right.
back in the day, and so um, that channel in specific, we had come in contact with some people through the family that knew people there, and we were able to get one of our first world champions in fencing, and it was the first time they had allowed women's saber to be considered a officially competitive event in fencing. Which I mean, nowadays you think, how is that not right? But it was just kind of a sexism thing. It just took that long for it to be considered an event
Mm-hmm.
in fencing. And she was the first world champion of women's saber, and she was Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Donna Sawarski. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. She was from our club, and I was like, no one knows about this. Like, how can we help? Like, get people to know that we have a world champion who's like set a precedent here.
Mm-hmm.
She won the cup in Sweden, I think, and so we got that news station and the CBC too. The local news station was doing stuff because of my Canada Games thing, but CBC eventually we were able to get in contact when Donna won, and we were like, "You need to come to the club. You need to interview her. Like, please, this is her story. This is the club she's from. She's got a way crazier schedule than we can even imagine." And they got to cover her. They did like an athlete kind of uncovered sort of thing for Donna after that. And
Mm-hmm.
I was always just trying to get media platforms of any kind, newspaper or TV, to show
Right.
fencing on television because I just didn't see it. I was so upset the first time the Olympics were on when I was a fencer and there was no fencing on TV. I was just crushed because streaming
Mm-hmm.
didn't exist yet. So I did everything I could. Now with me actually being in film and media, I've helped some of them do videos. I've done a commercial online digital commercials for a couple of fencing clubs. That's kind of how I got like cut my teeth on like stylizing things, shooting action,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that sport so well. I know when is the good time to shoot that moment. I know what the good angle is for that moment. So that's kind of where I figured out how to really play on emotions and action. Um, so I'm always willing to do like advertisements and social media things for fencing platforms and for fencing clubs because that was my main passion as a kid, wanting to share that love for the sport with other people. um, and yeah, the history thing was a relatable part of why I loved fencing. So
Sure.
it's mainly me tapping into what I didn't have before, which is and access to historical knowledge and research. And once I hit university, I had that. And once the internet got better, I had that. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, it gave me a way to figure out how do I go about and do archaeology? How do I, what actually happened during these time periods? Where can I look for more of this information? And that finally helped sate that thirst that I didn't have back then. And so fencing was mainly my avenue into medieval stuff that I was already into. Yeah,
And it's so crazy because I would have never have known that fencing is the reason that got you kind of more and more into or more invested into like D&D and storytelling in medieval times. It's kind of like you already had this passion and then that kind of influenced it more and more in your current day life is that you're using fencing kind of as an outlet to kind of influence that like that storytelling kind of influence, right?
yeah,
So I always thought that I think that's amazing and that's special and that you found so many people that you've connected with that you've found so much love through a sport and
yeah,
a lot of people don't see that some people don't see that in team sports but they do but
mm,
there's the individual side of sports that really where you find like individuals that really make a difference in your life.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm cutting you off. You gotta
No, not at
sneeze.
all. No,
Okay,
like
good.
I think the big thing about the individual sports that even in individual sports it gets lost, but the big thing I found I could really hone in on the individual sports is psychological training. Just because it's something that's not tangible and touchable and movable and workable, particularly on your own, like on the outside of your body, it's
Hmm.
taken for granted grossly by even the best coaches. And there are very few, and I've been lucky to have at least a few coaches that really knew how to harness this in the students, and like psychological coaching on how to deal with stress in competition, how to deal with stress in training, how to, and not to suppress it, but how to channel it in a productive way is not only great for being an athlete
Hmm.
and visualizing and shadow fighting in your head so you know what to do next, but
Hmm.
but for applicable everywhere. I mean, if you weren't exposed to meditation before being competitive in anything, you definitely should be, start trying some sort of meditation exercise or visualization ritual to get into a good headspace, to be ready to take on whatever's coming at you. um, because I found knowing how to channel those feelings, emotions into actions, um, into productive actions, is not an easy thing to do if you don't have anyone to really encourage you to dig into that. So,
What was your mindfulness practice when you were? I mean, you had to have faced fear multiple times in those national settings and having a lot of people watching you. I mean, there had to have been a method that you've used.
well, I think the thing, what's funny? Um, Fencing was my safe space. I didn't know anybody. A lot of the people I was there first time, but they were all adults, at least at first, right? And
Hmm.
even the kids that I met later, like a year or two after I started fencing, that were in fencing, they weren't like me in all the likes and dislikes and things, but they had a similar maturity to them about how to treat other people that the sport inherently encourages. Because it is a sport for everyone, regardless of gender. But let's be real about the history. It was a gentleman's sport. There was a way to conduct yourself to your opponent.
Hmm.
You were challenged to a duel. It was either to the first drawing of blood or to the death. Regardless of what that might be, you you figured out your terms. You saluted each other, and when it was over, whatever the conflict was is over. It ended there,
Right.
um, and you didn't bring it back out into the world with you. So growing up with that feeling being taught to you in a sport like that, and already revering it so much as a kid that loves history and loves like loves combat culture of those histories, I just leaned into that so hard, into my ideals and the way I treat people. Like, with like, we can have something wrong. We're gonna fight through it together. You might say some hurtful things to me. I might say some hurtful things to you. I'm gonna try my best to be empathetic. But like, once we're done, once we've settled, we've figured out what's up, we can leave it here. We don't forget it. We can leave it here and we can move on, right? And I think that's important, because you don't see, it's very, very rare, and it's discouraged with black cards, which are like banning from a tournament or a season, depending on how bad it is. There is no
Right.
unsportsmanlike behavior allowed. There is
Right.
like a hard line, not like fencers watching hockey or any other like big like sport that there's a lot of machismo and like people shouting at each other. We kind of laugh because we're like, my God, like, you couldn't do that. You couldn't even think of doing that or
Mm.
give wrong look to someone during a match, because you gotta, this is a respectful match between two people, and it's over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think that, so back to the point of your question. Sorry.
No, it's all
Uh,
good. You're here. You're passionate about this shit. That's why we want to go for
back
it.
to the point. Fencing was a safe space because it seemed like everyone was at least on the same page with that, and it was already part of the sport to treat people with respect, no matter how what you thought of them outside of that. Whether you
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh, he's that really high ranked competitive guy, he looks down on people, blah blah blah.
Right.
But when you're on the piste, no matter how much of that is true or untrue, that person's gonna salute you and has to shake your hand at the end of the match. There is no negotiation there. You must do that at the very least. And
Right.
so that makes you go in only nervous about one thing, and that is, how do I get the next point? And that is kind of the beauty of that, is that I never felt like I needed to worry about the mood or the emotion or any kind of violent interaction with that person, because it was them. They very, especially in the competitive circle, they know very much that it is them versus them, even though they're facing me.
Mm-hmm.
I am
Yeah.
facing me, even though I'm facing them. And like, it's very much, how can I change in the moment to get the next point? How, and this person's thinking, how do I change and adapt to that change to make sure they don't and I get the next point? And it's this dance where you want to make the other person trip. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and that's kind of the beauty of it. My stress was never about the people, was never about the crowds. If anything, fencing didn't have much of a crowd. It was mainly parents and coaches, and other fencers that wanted to see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when I finally did get a crowd in the Canada Games, a bunch of people that didn't know the sport, that were just really excited. The venue was in the town. They just
Right.
flooded it. It was huge. We'd never had a bigger crowd for a fencing competition ever, and we were so excited in the Canada Games. And there was flags being flown and everything, and we're like, this is nuts. But I cannot tell you how wonderful it felt instead. All of a sudden, it felt like, yeah, I belong here. These people want me to be here. And whether they were there or not, I would still have a great time. But it felt really good to, like, it felt good to see that not only was the sport that had given me that was being seen,
Mm-hmm.
but I was being seen doing what I loved and being cheered on for it for once,
Right.
So it was a very, I yeah. So if the short answer is, I've never had to manage stress past my what I needed to do to win or get the next point. That was the only thing that ever stressed me out, that I had to really manage and work on. So
Mm-hmm. And that was just in general in life. Like it was really like, just what is the next step? What is the next point? How am I going to push myself just a little bit further, 1% better every day, every minute? It was really just working on the small things that kind of overall kind of exchange towards your overall mental health,
yeah,
more or less.
and when I was getting ready for the Canada Games, I was also cross training, because fencing is a very two-dimensional sport on the body. You're on a
Mm-hmm.
strip of 1.5 meters wide copper that is
Mm-hmm.
like rolled across the floor, and it's very long. It's about 15 meters long, and
Mm-hmm.
so you're back and forth on that. But that means
Right.
you're in a specific stance, never changing sides, which means your muscles develop depending on what side you're overworking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at kids that are very competitive that haven't done the cross training, the leg muscles are going to be very customized to that specific fencing stance of the hand that they are. And so you have to be very careful about that. So what I did was I took karate, and that helped me a lot. And it's the same karate club that I was in when I met Ben for streaming afterwards. But yeah, it was um, that, and karate alone has a big meditation aspect to it. You meditate at the beginning of your lesson to clear your head, and then you meditate at the end of practice to review everything and re-download it, everything you've learned into your head before you leave. So
What was mindfulness like? Like, what was that meditative state like? Were you just kind of stretching and then just kind of reviewing what you went over that day, or was it just kind of like kind of like an imagery situation where, like you're kind of maybe not through stretching, but maybe just kind of standing there or sitting there and just kind of
in
losing
yeah,
yourself.
in fencing there was definitely like a physicality to how I quote unquote meditated before
Mm,
meditation was like a focused thing for me.
yeah.
Um, because I had learned mental preparation through fencing first. So it was more tactile. I would try to, when I was in fencing camps that really encouraged a lot of this sort of thing, I would go and I would grab my fencing glove, I'd put it on, I'd show up a little bit early when there was no one in the gym. I would grab the weapon and
Mm,
I would go up and down the piece, maybe do work on a few flicks and just pace up and down and just not even try to clear my head, but just feel the blade in my hand, feel the leather of the glove, feel the smell of it, the feel it's taking the atmosphere. Very much, very much in the same way that I mean, in episode one, the heat shields come up and
right.
Qui-Gon meditates, and he's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like waiting for it. Um, he's kind of just getting ready to be clean slate into that fight. And it's kind of in fencing, it's a more tactile thing where you kind of ritualize how you do that by grabbing things that you can feel and use and touch and whatever. And sometimes it is through stretching and footwork and whatever in a very slow way. But then when I finally got into karate, there were times where I would mix the two when I would go into meditating for fencing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very specific morning routine before competition and the night before competition to get me prepared. I'd make sure none of my equipment had issues, so that was one less thing to worry about that morning. So a lot of the time, I would be working and tweaking my weapons and equipment, make last minute checking them while I was watching a movie. It was usually Rocky Four with the big Russian.
Yes.
That was my favorite underdog movie, and that was my mental preparation for the next day. I would always throw in Rocky Four and do check my equipment, and then I would go to bed with that like I'm pumped, I'm ready. Like even if I'm no matter how big the other guy is, I can it's doable. And that was kind of my thing, and then I would show up half an hour early minimum, do my thing. But with karate, it was very much review, like visualize
Mm-hmm.
and review, let it wash over, let the worries wash over you, right, like the wave, but then feel the air blowing over the sand once the sea recedes, right, and washes
Mm-hmm.
away, right, and just wait for and just be ready for the next wave, right, and like just feeling that ebb and flow of thoughts in a way that helps you manage them and helps you channel them eventually when you open your eyes into your body,
Mm-hmm.
and once the heat shields open back up again,
Mm-hmm.
you jump straight back into the fight,
Ready to
right?
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So what was so you were able to do fencing, you had school, you maybe played some video games on the side. How would you balance everything out, even with like hanging out with family, friends, and whatnot? How would you kind of combine it all together?
Well, at that time,
Mm,
um, I mean, at that time before university, it wasn't very difficult. Mainly because the I think it wasn't difficult because the internet hadn't been that big of an influence in our lives like it is now.
mm,
So it was basically when you were hanging out with friends next door, the most the internet would suck you in would be like, oh, did you see that funny thing on E-Bomb's World yet? And it'd show you the thing, you'd laugh at it, and then you'd go back outside. Like
mm-hmm,
it was not, oh, now how about this thing and this thing? There was no click holes back then. There was only that one or two funny things to look at, and then we can go back out and ride our bikes. There was no or play a couple of games together. So I
Mm-hmm.
think managing time wasn't an issue, and a lot of my regular life back in my adolescence and childhood was very much already with the flow of, hey, this holiday is coming up, time to go see this family, time to go see that family, and being in a small town, that balance was easy. um, even around high school,
Mm-hmm.
it was easier because I had a very clear idea of, you know, how much time I had to do each thing. Fencing was definitely a priority for a while because I was competitive,
Mm-hmm.
and I I'm very, very thankful that I had parents that were supportive of it. Like, admittedly, my dad was a soccer guy. He didn't realize fencing was very popular in Italy, so he was a little bit, he was a little bit upset for a while that I his son didn't like soccer. He didn't care that I wasn't good at it, which was nice. He didn't care about that. He just wanted me to be playing it, and I think that it made him a little sad when I decided to make the change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but eventually he came around. He came around, and he ended up starting to try it once in a while. There was some competitions he would do, so that was kind of cute. We would sometimes get him all done up in equipment and throw him in a competition, and he'd have a good laugh with other people his age that were fencing too. And so that it kind of became a nice thing that we did once in a while as well.
What so we talked a little bit about your parents, right? Like your mom is more creative and theatrical and just kind of introduced you to that open world of imagination, and your dad was more of the hardworking person trying to just make ends meet for you
Yeah.
guys, but he supported you a lot
Mm,
in whatever you wanted to do,
yeah.
regardless of what sport you wanted.
Yeah.
Was was that kind of did that carry over into like your career? I'm sure your mom was very influential into the theatric part of it
Yeah.
and designing and all that. But
There's a
yeah.
yeah. There's a tactile nature
Mm,
to how, regardless of which parent it is, to how to balance and live your life out from that generation, right? And so there is, even from the most supportive person in the family, there is still the concern and the worry that, is this avenue doable?
mm,
Um, but still, yes, my mom was super supportive, and my dad was like, "That's cool,
mm,
and you can go to university for anything." That was never a Luckily, that was never an issue.
mm,
When it was time for me to go to university, they were like, "Go to university. What are you going to take? Great, go and do it." And whatever. Because, like most parents of that generation, they thought that university and not college was going to give you an automatic job, right? And in that
mm,
particular point in time, every boomer parent thought that. And there was that academic inflation issue, and
right.
everyone had at least a bachelor's degree. And so, unless you were built to become a lawyer, a teacher, a doctor, or something that, like, regular, the regular grind of life, includes, you didn't really fit with any other degree.
Mm,
Um, Luckily for me, the DSLR revolution in cameras was just around the corner. I had just
mm,
missed it by a couple of years in school, so the schools didn't have them yet. But as
mm,
soon as we graduated, it became a big deal that cameras that had decent video output actually could help you make indie films and make projects that no one has been able to make yet on low budgets. So that became a very exciting time for all of us when we graduated from film school. But anyway, in the main part of your question, there, like, it was difficult because, yeah, my mom supported the big bits, but my dad, he was still supportive, but he wants to see the money.
yeah.
I don't resent you know any bit of that, because that is how, I always try to see from other people's perspectives, and that's just how he was brought up. That
Mm,
is nothing to do with his priorities as a person or whatever, or how he cares about me. It is just how he's brought up, that he wants to make sure. like his measuring of success is how that works, right? And how you're able
Mm-hmm.
to get there. So I think it really hit him the first time I got a feature film as a writer, and I was actually getting paid to write a script, and that
Mm-hmm.
was when he really kind of came around and was like, hey, like, I know this production was a bit rough for you or whatever, but I'm really happy. It's really good to see that you got to do the thing that you've been working for.
Mm-hmm.
He comes around when he sees it,
Right,
and I
right,
and
yeah.
I respect that. I respect that.
Yeah, and it seems like they of course like there has to be a bigger plan
Yeah,
behind what your interests are,
yeah,
but it seems like they're very supportive of what you wanted to do, and
yeah,
very they wanted flexibility for you to do what you wanted to do, but as long as there's this bigger plan. So
yeah,
that's that's really awesome that you had that support,
yeah,
regardless what it was. So why don't we just get into the streaming, right? We talked a lot about your background. We
yeah,
talked a lot about fencing and talked about your role
yeah.
models and all that stuff. What really and truly inspired you to start streaming?
Well, I think the thing that inspired me mainly was my friend Ben. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
cannot stress enough how, like, I would have never given Twitch a second chance if he didn't say just come and hang out. Right? He was playing like Abzu or something, just chill and nice and exploratory, and I was watching and I'm like, this is cozy, this is
Mm-hmm.
nice. It's been a hellscape in real life at this point. I was the only non-immunocompromised person in my family, so I was the one doing, and you couldn't get a time slot to get delivery groceries to save your life at the time because
Mm-hmm.
everyone was freaking out. So I
Right.
had to go to all the grocery stores to do shopping, not only for us, like my mother and I, but also my grandparents who are very old and very frail right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing that, and I had never experienced it in my life before, but I was starting to feel what I only ever heard about people having, which was like intense anxiety when I
Right.
was going into public places that weren't ready for this COVID thing yet. When before masks were mandatory and before they had the plastic, screening up on every cashier, like I was so shaken by having to go out in public for a while because I knew my mom had almost died some months before with a very similar thing before the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic started and had barely survived it. And so I was just like, holy crap, like I got to be careful because if I even catch anything, like she can catch it too. So this, like going to Twitch and seeing what he was doing and making me realize I can find a way to make a schedule for myself to get up in the morning and focus back in on what I was supposed to do before everything crashed so that
Mm-hmm.
when this is gone, when this craziness is kind of finished and
Mm-hmm.
there's things for me to go and seek out and jobs to grab and things like that, I at least I'll be somewhat ready. It wouldn't be in vain, you know. And so it took a lot of time, but I streaming was how do I get up in the morning and get back to doing creative stuff, doing the stuff that
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be doing. I already had my equipment because I had started a small business doing commercials. So I'm using a camera that I invested in. All I had to really buy was the LED light and the stand, this crane for the mic, because everything
Right.
else I had from my business. So
Uh-huh.
this office is basically where I edit everything and all that stuff and did my
Mm-hmm.
storyboard drafting. So this became I switched gears and I knew how to do media. I knew I wanted to make it feel like different shows with a variety of things so that it felt like a channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has several different things going on. And so I just wanted to build a place where I can use the creativity I had been trained and working on to continue, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's really like you've already had experience in like video editing and theater and just kind of designing your own stories and just creativity in
Yeah,
totality through digital art. And as you and me were kind of working on something for the stream as well, which is digital art. You know, that's also a part of it, and I feel like that's been there for a long time, even before you started streaming and you started getting into it. You've
Right.
had this talent for creativity and art, and just kind of using that for as product. You know,
Mm.
for something you can sell for yourself. So, so when you started streaming, what COVID hit, it was hard for you to even go out in public without having that social anxiety of who has it and where am I going to do? And am I going to? Oh, my chair. Am
You
I
okay?
gonna? No, no. I have like loose bolts in the back of it. Anyways,
Gotcha.
you found that it was very difficult for you to be out in public, but you still wanted to connect with people. So it sounded like streaming helped you do just that
Mm.
and connect with people you wanted to hang out with, but it didn't feel appropriate at the time going into their house or saying hi or doing those things. So what are some other things that kind of went on, you know, with let's say theater and kind of like that the entrepreneurship, that side of it, what was kind of going on there that kind of you were working on when COVID hit?
I was working on um, I was working on a portfolio to submit to Disney, and
Oh,
in order to do that, I had to get very used to using, drawing tablets and things like that. I had just come off of a job where I was only a storyboard artist for the short film. And I realized I really enjoyed the process of that, even though I wasn't the lead creative. I mean, half the reason I
sure.
started doing storyboarding is because I wanted to plan out my shots as a director, and I had been doing a lot of that for my own commercial projects and things. But eventually I got a little bit of work doing that and realized, you know what, I should really see about where else I could do this. And the animation departments in film
Mm,
um, consider storyboard artists also as somewhat writers of the story because the process
mm,
is different for producing. Because the visual people actually create the narrative, and then some of the dialogue sort of comes later because it's more of a visual language, especially with kids shows and stuff.
mm,
So um, I had gotten a lot of feedback from some people at Disney about how I should prepare this portfolio before I send it in. That I'd come in contact to during not during the pandemic, during one of the film festivals just before the pandemic, and I had been working hard at that. I had been working on new business production packages for small businesses to be able to afford having me on as a producer of their content.
mm,
Um, I was writing screenplays that I needed for my writing portfolio as a writer to
mm.
apply to unions and things like that. And guilds. So it was a long, you know, uh, it was a bunch of things that needed to get done and updated constantly, and that I
Mm,
was right in the middle of. And then this hit, and so any projects that I would have had finished, I was coaching in two different clubs
mm,
about 3 to 4 times a week, which was really, a big deal.
mm.
So that completely stopped too. Like I said, the sign went up right as the doors closed behind me. So yeah, a lot of that stuff was happening right at the same time. Yeah.
Did streaming kind of allow you to stay busy even with all these projects kind of, you know,
Yeah.
having a blasted note on the
Yeah,
door?
it had me. Well, that was the thing. Gave me It gave me a reason to continue because I knew there was no way I was going on set yet. I did have set work that I was part of. I was in the kind of the tech department, which is called grip and electric, or just grip, or just electric, depending on how picky you are as a set person working there. Um, and I used to be, I used to be on the crews of some TV shows and some other smaller projects. and I have a lot of friends in that, and I
Mm,
just knew as soon as this hit, and I was doing all these things for the family, that I definitely couldn't live with myself if I went to a set that is boasting that they're all safe and this and that, but like, yes, it still happens to my family. So I had to realize, how else could I do media stuff? How else can I do film stuff? And now not be obligated by the paycheck, but more of how do I get my career forward and get myself out there and manage my time. It helped me manage my time. That's why I
mm,
did. That's why I do morning musings. That's why I do that morning stream where I just work on practicing art, or doing a commission, or writing. Sometimes you'll find me on morning musings, and I'll be it's like keyboard ASMR. I'm just like blah 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 blah. Like I'm like you probably first time hopping into my stream, you'd probably wonder, especially on the writing days, is like, what the hell is this, right? But
mm.
especially in the early days. But now the community in the morning is so warm and so like active. um or I'll have like 15 people in there, like all chatting, saying hello, good morning to each other, like memeing about coffee and stuff. And I'm just like I don't know what to deserve you guys being here. I'm just drawing, I'm just writing. But
Right.
I want to it's really nice that you want to hang out with me, and it helps me have that time with people and also have that time with my work. So yeah.
When you so when you find new people coming in and just kind of seeing you for the first time,
Yeah.
what is that what's that feeling like to meet somebody like every day?
To meet someone every day on stream, you
Yeah,
mean?
to
Yeah.
meet multiple people watching just you doing writing, doing
I
screenplays,
mean,
whatever.
the the community that's built up, especially in the last 3 or 4 months, has been overwhelming. It's
Mm,
been, but in a good way.
mm-hmm,
Um, and because of the nature of it being, my categories being moving between gaming, art, and Dungeons and Dragons as like the main ones you put up on your Streamlabs before you go live.
mm-hmm,
Between those three, um, it seems like those viewers, especially at the point that we're in now, right, where it's
mm,
affiliate, and it's a nice slow climb of like just getting to know your community that you're building. They're friends. So
mm-hmm,
I've been with most of the people. Only a few of them I've known way before this, before I started streaming. But there are, a lot of these people I've already known for about almost a year, and it's baffling to think that the time has flown by that quickly. But there's so many other streams now, or people that weren't streaming and they were inspired to stream because of me, and or maybe someone else in the community that they found me through. Um, that
mm-hmm,
has just grown. I guess I've just started guest starring on other friends' D&D channels as a player. So that's been really fun because it takes away the responsibility of managing all the overlays and stuff, and just lets me play
mm-hmm.
D&D and be dramatic and use those theater muscles that I haven't used in a while to play a game with friends. And the only difference is there's an audience to cheer us on, and that's kind of nice. So it's been really cool every day to run into the same people in my Discord, in the channel, and it's just so nice. It's just really nice. I love it.
Well, when so at the end of your stream, how do you kind of like evaluate whether your goals have been achieved or like if the stream needs to still be worked on in certain.
That's a good question. I think, at least currently, I think it's mainly my mind state that is taking precedent over how can I improve the stream. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that is that I told myself when I was going to start streaming that I was doing it, and not in a negative way, but I was doing this selfishly. I was coming
Mm-hmm.
online to do my work because I needed to get the work done, and I validated it for myself by doing it live and telling my that time, you know, making sure that time towards me and my family. I said, hey, listen, I am broadcasting because streaming is a weird word to people,
Yeah.
right? So they don't know what that is. A lot of people that even friends that are my age, they're like, what do you, why? And they only know very broad strokes about what streaming is, and they don't get it. And I'm just like, I'm doing online broadcasting. That's what I call it now. When I talk to people that don't get it, I say it's online broadcasting. I have a show, 6 days a week, of different themes. So I said I'm doing this selfishly for myself. I'm gonna get any games that I play are gonna be the games I already have, so that I don't so I save money, and I actually finally get to play those things, and I
Mm,
don't play during the week when I should be working, right?
mm,
Um, when I'm doing creative stuff, I'm doing it for me so I can get this thing done. Sometimes I'm literally working on a subscription badge that people will be having eventually on stream
mm.
because it's something that needs to get done. I won't do it off stream. So I got to do it now, right? So that's what I do, right? Or a commission or whatever. If I'm doing world building is the only one where it really feels like I'm doing it for them, but at the same time, selfishly, it's me flexing my muscles as a writer, and
Mm,
like kind of simulating the idea that I am in a writer's room, except I don't know the writers. All the writers be dropping in for the first time, or they could be people that come in once in a while, or they could be a familiar friend that decides to hop in and be like, I got one idea, I gotta go now, bye.
right.
And then but they all contribute in some way, shape, or form, and I have to figure out how it all fits on the same world, and that is very good for helping my brain be collaborative with other people, because
Mm,
unlike fencing where it's individual, writing for television and film, it has to be a collaborative process or it falls apart quickly and you never get another writing job.
mm.
So it really helps me keep that instinct of how do I work with this person, make this fit the narrative, and do all that and make it fun for everyone too. So
Right. And I think you put it perfectly. You're showing your skills, but at the same time, you're creating an interactive
yeah,
space where,
yeah,
you want to have that, the user coming in, they want to know what's going on. Well, you want to be able to introduce that and bring them into this world, kind of like for fencing, where
yeah,
you were advertising. You want to show people that have never seen the sport before and just kind of explain it in a way seems simple. So it's the
yeah,
same thing for your work.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I
So,
wanted to echo those things that I was missing. Yeah,
so you said that you had when you started streaming, you had this notion that, okay, I'm doing this for myself. Like I'm doing this just to advocate for my work and not even just for my work, but like the skills that I could show that I could maybe be interactive with. But mostly, this is an excuse to get my work done,
yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
of course that direction changed, like as it
Mm,
grew. I would say the biggest pivotal change was probably in the last 3 to 4 months. Um, but it's actually been longer that it's been changing. I think it's just that all the channels that I had connected with and grown with had
mm,
also grown since I met them. And so the community grew because everyone was hopping into each other's streams. We were all small streamers. And that's when the dynamic changed of it being just a quiet stream where it's some dude doing whatever,
mm,
and it became, hey, this is a nice spot to have a morning coffee and see what my friend is up to that I only know online too, that's in that chat, right? Like they weren't. I have a feeling, yeah, sure, it is. Streaming is very much about the personality because you could be playing the same game a million people are playing on stream, but they come because you're the one playing it
mm,
and your personality is what's drawing them there. And so that's what was made very clear to me by Ben. Is like it doesn't matter what you do on stream. It's cool if you have something unique to do, but it's not necessary. They're there because of your personality and what you're
right.
willing to engage with. So eventually, when more people came in and I was able to engage with them, it grew into just art, but also just chatting. but of course I'm still working on something at the same time. So I always put it as art, but I definitely don't like. I'm always looking at the chat. I'm always talking with people, and the community kind of grew once we found those small streamers, which is interesting, and we started building things like the stream crawl, which we started in December. Uh,
Mhm.
we did the stream crawl in December for the holidays, and that was really cool. It was the first time we had enough. We felt like we had a really tight community, and we can find a bunch of different streamers in our community that wanted to do like a raid train for the
Yeah.
whole day because everyone was like alone and stuck inside for Christmas. So on the 19th of December, we found a bunch of streamers that wanted to take some time slot and do this. And we did a beautiful day of just from 8 a.m. till like the next day, right? Pretty
Mhm.
much. And we even did a giveaway at the end of the crawl and all sorts of cool things. And it became such a big deal, and so many people were thanking us, being like, "This was like me and the Mother of Jedi, another beautiful, wonderful streamer." Who she's like just so cozy, like again, very cozy community.
Mhm.
She does crafting, she does gaming, um, she does cooking streams. She's actually cooking a recipe that I redeemed in her channel points on Saturday. She's doing that on Saturday. But anyway, like her and I have been organizing these, and now we realize, you know what, we're gonna have to do this every quarter now.
Mhm.
So April will be the next one, and next one. So we built this community out of nothing, and it was beautiful. Um, and to find how we can connect with people all around the world has allowed people to be friends with the people. You know what I mean? A lot
Right.
more than, okay, you're in the same area I am. It's easy to hang out with you because you live close and we get along. But you may not share a ton in common. It's very rare and very lucky when you have someone that lives close to you that's into everything that you're into. But
Oh
now
yeah, absolutely.
that barrier and that need is of proximity is not allowed. So now the internet's allowing you to go hang out with your people. All you have to do is bang your drum loud enough and play the song of your people, and the people will come, and that's what's happened is like the people have come and they're all like saying hello and hanging out. And yeah, Phoenix knows. Yeah, okay. She's a great art streamer. She does the emotes for a lot of people in our community. But it's like it's crazy how everyone is like clumped together and decide and figured out this really nice community. Yeah.
You're probably the first streamer on
Mhm.
Squadrons that I've seen that has done this crawl, that has done like multiple streamers at once,
Mhm.
just kind of playing this one game.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so like I've seen it in other games, but like for like Among Us and stuff, but
Yeah.
like never for like a small game that like you just wanted your friends to come in and play and yeah.
So yeah, okay. So the format of that of Squadrons was basically because the game came out. I
Mhm.
had been because I had been doing only the Steam games I already owned.
Mhm.
I wasn't I wasn't I was trying to like put blinders on and not look at any other game that I knew I would love if it came out. And of course, like Fallen Order came out, Squadrons came out, all these beautiful, incredible looking Battlefront, incredible Star Wars games came out almost like
Right.
boom, 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 and I'm just like, no, 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 blinders, and and it was it was another testament and beautiful moment in the community. Um, one of my good friends and streamers, Jables917, um, out of nowhere in my Steam inventory, he's like, "Merry Christmas," and he gave me Squadrons, and I was just like, "What? Are you mad?" And he's like, "Hey man, like I know you know what? Just do me a favor and stream this sometime.
Yeah.
I want to see you," because he had just begun streaming. I had helped him set up his streaming stuff when he needed to figure it out, and and he was playing Jedi Fallen Order. Um, and so when he gets to me Squadrons, he's like, just stream this for me. I want you to stream this. I
Mhm.
want to see you play this. I'm like, dude, first of all, thank you so much. I was like in tears. Like, why the hell would anybody that I've never met in person do something like that? And then yeah, I started streaming it, but I thought, you know what's really cool is that in Star Wars we get to see every perspective in every single cockpit. And I was like, how do we get every single perspective, right? How do we get it every single perspective at once so that people feel like they're in the cockpit with not just me, but
Mm,
every single other person in the squad, right? I wanted that so bad. And of course, because I didn't know virtual cam was a thing. I just knew how to do it to stream my DSLR to Streamlabs. I didn't know the
right.
virtual cam feature existed. And so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, no, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, so that means I can literally just have Streamlabs and a Zoom call and
Yeah.
throw it all up on stream. And so as soon as I realized how that can be put together, we did a test stream. And I think it was during the test stream, not even the main stream, was when I met you and you rated me. You rated in because
Yeah.
it was like a test stream. It was our first time doing it. Like the next week was going to be the first official week of doing it, and it blew up. And I'm like, isn't this like a super popular game? Like I didn't know anything about the community of Squadrons, so I was just playing because I wanted to play and get all the different cameras up. And so it was cool to get other stream friends that had gotten the game and other friends of the streams to do the same setup I did with virtual cam so that we could all see the perspectives. And whoever can't do it, no problem, we'll still play. But most of them could do it, which was great. And it was so neat because I'm like, wow, it really is a small world. I would be doing a dog fight, and then like two usernames in the chat would pop up of the exact names that we just shot down, or like they just destroyed us, and they're like, "Hey, GG." I'm like, "Wait, what?" How do they know we're streaming right now? Like I didn't realize how small the Squadrons community was until that first day and the first 2 weeks of streaming it. It was beautiful, and it was really cool because I guess it was something that no one had done yet with the Squadron streaming, and I just thought someone must have done this. This is kind of like someone must want like a more cinematic kind of like multicam thing going on. So I
Mhm.
figured if it's this easy to do, I'm sure it's been done, but I just want to do it as a community gaming day, because
Mhm.
we're not competitive. If we have people waiting that are part of the squadron, I have like 13, 14 people in the squadron now, and if it's no obligation. If there's only one or two people available, great. If there's everyone available, then everyone gets 2 rounds, and then they switch out, and someone else comes in,
Right.
and we cycle through, and it's really fun. It's like intramural sports, right? You just pick up and
Right.
go sort of thing, and we just had a fun time with it. Yeah,
So now that you've kind of like gotten the stream going, you got like your schedule going for the stream, and you're almost coming up on 1 year in a few
yeah.
months. How have you seen your persona like kind of change over time towards the streaming atmosphere?
I don't think I noticed it until one of my regular viewers and friends, Vast Ice, mentioned it because I was for the longest time I had a huge. I'm very much a film person, a visual person. I'm not good with
Right.
audio equipment, so
Hmm.
a lot of my audiophile friends had to help me with that aspect. But for the longest time, I didn't realize that one side of my microphone was the part that you had to record from. And like when I see a headphone jack right there, I think, oh, it needs to be on the other side. So I
Right.
was talking into the side that wasn't recording, and I sounded so distant because I wasn't talking into
Uh.
the mic. So for the longest time that was happening, it was like for like four, no, probably about 10 streams, I sounded like I was distant, and I had to get really close for anyone to hear me. And then when I finally figured it out, I'm like, oh God, okay. Still, I had like I was a little bit more laid back when I would speak, especially in the mornings, because there wasn't a lot of people back then. One or two people maybe said something
Mhm.
in the chat, a lot of lurkers. And then finally, there was a time where probably about 5 months, like 5 months in, where someone said, "Oh, your sound's a little, you're peaking, like your voice is peaking here and
Right.
there, and you might want to put it down." Like, really? Like, yeah, like you might want to bring it down a little bit. I'm like, okay, usually my levels are at yellow and it's fine. It's not good. It doesn't go higher than that. They're like, I think you're getting more confident. I think you're getting more used to always speaking and always having something to say and engaging with people, that even when you don't have anyone saying something new, you know how to continue, and so you project a lot more. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense, because before all this, I already knew how to speak and project and socialize and all that. I was, I was able to get myself out there. I was in theater for a bit too. So, but when I got to streaming, it's weird that that didn't immediately translate. I had to learn how to have that assertiveness in my voice to confidently and smoothly speak again. So, yeah.
And have you seen that transition in real life, like when you're talking to, friends?
I think so. I think we all have gears, like we're like
Mm.
a manual car when it comes to speaking to different aspects of our lives. And it's not that we're different, we're still the same car. But like for example, when I talk to my grandparents, my after live, not living with them, but after being around them so much in my life, when I switch gears to talk to them, I speak with like an Italian broken English accent, because
Yeah.
that's how they understand me, right?
Mm.
Or I'll switch to the Spanish that I know, because they speak Spanish too. So I'm like, okay, I can at least get by this way. If it's with, if it's with my parents, if it's with my dad, I switch gears and speak in a certain way. If it's with my mom, another way. And if it's with friends that I know in real life, well, I speak the way they know me to speak. But I never
Mm.
filter myself. Um,
Mm.
but I definitely have a different like tone and timbre and all that sort of thing.
Right.
When I'm, I try to be, because I was just selfishly streaming my work process. I was very much just being me on stream most of the time. And I think now it allows me to get myself out there more and be a little bit more confident. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say it's just a more confident and happy to be social sort of. I feel like it's me when I'm at a party every time I come on stream.
Mm.
I'm still, I'm not like the guy that like is like the middle of the party, but
Right.
I know how to go around the room and say hello to everybody and have little individual conversations with people. And every
Right.
once in a while, I'll have a funny story that everyone can't wait to hear. But I'm not the middle of the attention by any means, right? And and so I bring that kind of energy where it's like I can be nice and quiet and laid back and just, hey, how are you, small talk, or I can be like, yo, guys, we got this going on right now. Like I can ebb and flow between that pretty easily now, and that's me. But it's still me on stream. I just
Well,
have more
call.
energy. This gives me energy. This streaming is so, I don't know. It's definitely given me life again. It's nice.
I'm gonna keep that party flow.
Yeah,
It keeps
party
my
flow.
party flow alive. I
That's right.
like that. I like that.
Party
I'm
flow.
gonna
I like that.
don't TM the don't trademark that shit. I'm gonna use it.
Go ahead, steal it. Party flow.
So let's talk about the future for your stream, man. So in the next year, what are you thinking about doing, and like, what are some things kind of brewing in the back?
Well, the cool thing is the stream crawl that we did for winter time was
Mm-hmm.
just so wonderful. And we had so much feedback by viewers saying they felt like it was like going out to a club, but now I could be at home and enjoy it and just hang out with friends and feel different vibes from different channels. So they loved that. They want more of that. They want another raid train kind of party situation that we did. So moving forward, we're gonna try and do a stream crawl every 4 months. So the next one's gonna be in the middle of April. We have a lineup. We already have our lineup set up, and it's funny now because the first stream crawl we planned in a month. We did it very last minute, and it ran like there was that chaotic energy of everyone
Yeah.
figuring out what to do, how to organize things. Like the giveaway, we were like, oh my god, like it wasn't done like through any kind of fancy Streamlabs thing, because we had to use like an app online. Like
Right.
it was nuts, but it all worked out beautifully, and we were like, now we'll be even more prepared, and it's gonna even go smoother. So because that worked out like a dream, and this is going to be nice. So I'm excited for the new stream crawls, to bring in the newest streamers in our community and give them a time slot to really, hang out with everyone and enjoy. And it also gives them some nice, like it kind of bumps up awareness about that streamer being a streamer, because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
in chat or certain channels are more strict about even saying that you're a streamer at all, right? So sometimes you even have to pretend you don't do any of that stuff just to engage in chat, and so you got to be careful sometimes. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
unwritten rules in Twitch, so it's nice when we get to be like, hey, you get, I don't, whether you're an affiliate or not, like hop on, you get these 2 hours and you rate this person after you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll get rated in before that, and so it's a nice way to hype new friends up, and I'm excited for that. In terms of my stream personally, late to the show entertainment was the original name for my platform that I was going to do for podcasting, but it never
Mm-hmm.
really flew. However, now that I'm so comfortable with Twitch, um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready, and my co-star is ready to maybe come back a little bit. Uh,
Okay.
we're gonna do a kind of an occasional movie podcast, but it'll be a live stream of us going through it, which will be so much easier because I prefer editing video over just audio. So for me to just download the VOD afterwards and have it is going
Mm-hmm.
to make the workflow of actually having a podcast that much easier. And so I'm really excited that I'll be able to bring that back in. It's a long-term thing, but I think it'll be
Mm-hmm.
fun because it was mainly movie watching and reviewing. And then I have the World One Shot, which is the world that we built in Let's Create Worlds, the Let's Create
Mm-hmm.
Worlds show, is gonna get used as a short-term campaign where the whole chat plays a single hive mind character that gets to walk in the world they created and play an adventure in it. So I'm figuring out how to do that mechanically. There are a few streamers that have done it before, um, like Robert Hartley GM, who's from New Zealand. He's wonderful. He does something similar, and so I actually reached out to him to ask him, and kind of like say, hey, I'm going to be watching because there's something similar I want to do with mine, but it's like completely a homebrewed world. So I want to, I just want to see kind of the ebb and flow of it, and he's really wonderful and gracious. So I got to kind of see how that works in the way he plays it
Mm-hmm.
out, and I'm trying to figure out my own way of playing out that mechanic, because playing with a bunch of people playing one character is kind of a chaotic idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's a fun way for people that have never played Dungeons and Dragons or are a little anxious about meeting new people only online, to play to do a pickup game, can actually just like do a little voting thing and like just get to have some agency in deciding what to do next. So
Mm-hmm.
that'll be fun, and they get to walk an adventure in the world that they actually had a hand in creating, which I think is an exciting notion. So for anybody that gets to write anything, whether it's a short story, a film, or just doing it for fun. Yeah. So
That's
that's
awesome.
yeah.
That they get to also, you created this world or the base kind of layout of this world, and they kind of help,
Mm,
create that dialogue or that background of each character. As
yeah.
you said, like you don't want multiple people playing one character, but you want to create enough characters so that the
Oh,
people can resonate with them. Go
oh,
ahead, sorry.
they will play a single character. So the thing that's the crazy thing about this is that,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the difficult thing for me mechanically to figure out, is like they are going to be playing a single body, like a single character, and all of it'll hopefully it'll be kind of a voting thing, and whatever the largest vote is, that is the decision this person makes in the world that they made in the other show, right? So
Mm-hmm.
one show is you get to create the world, you get to sculpt it with your own hands and ideas, and then the other show, which will run maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, will be them getting a chance for the completed region to actually have an
Mm-hmm.
adventure in the world they created a few episodes ago. So as a single player, so it is, or a single character. So it's crazy, but it's fun because then they'll actually get to walk in the world they created, which is the big thing. Yeah.
In like 3 to 5 years, do you see more of these open world interactions with your chat and with other streamers that will kind of want to intermingle with you?
I think so, and I think it's already started happening with the smaller streaming community of D
Mm,
and D. Um, I had become very quickly really good friends with a couple of growing D&D channels that were really sweet to me when I was just like a new streamer that didn't know anything. Um, and so I became really good friends with people at the Gilded Troll and the Adventure Archive,
mm,
and they've been inviting me into their games as a player. So that's been something that's really made my streaming schedule even busier, because now it's not even just me streaming, it's me guesting on another show, right? And
right.
it's fun. So I'm totally happy deciding this week I'm going to take a stream off so I can be on this, because then it allows me to have um, a little bit more relaxed from the whole, managing it in the background aspect. So it's really nice how the community's grown, and I think it's bigger from here because um, world building kind of me doing the world building stream got a lot of people wanting to do world building on their stream too, and I in no way, shape, or form was the original person to even do world building on stream. I'm sure many streamers were doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
and just titling it differently, or just doing it just because that's what they wanted to do that day. But yeah, I really a lot of people that came to my stream decided to start doing world building streams of their own, because they saw how
Mm,
much fun it was to chat with people and let them put input on their ideas, and they really realized how diverse of how original you can make a world when it's not just one brain writing it, right?
mm-hmm.
One brain can only think of so many creative things before it just feels like a dream where it's being picked from different places in your brain, right? Whereas a collective of brains throwing ideas and things that they like into it makes the
Mm-hmm.
world way more interesting and makes it feel more like a world. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's been really fun, and I'm really happy. I'm really happy it caught on in my community that a lot of people like went off and wanted to do some of it on their own to really feel that, because that's part of the fun. Yeah,
That's really awesome to see how you're influencing other people to kind of get into this world that
yeah,
they create, right? Like that's so expansive, right? We're so used to playing games with like very finite objectives to do, and you got to do these things to move on. But here you're creating your own world, your own objectives, your own tasks, and it's starting to spread like a wildfire here. Like
yeah.
I love it, man. So you see that, so now you're starting to see that your schedule's starting to pile up a little bit, and you have all these things to do, and
Yeah.
you didn't even notice that it was happening until all of a sudden people are asking more and more about it,
Mm.
right? So do you see? So aside from those couple days off, are do you see like yourself like taking like weeks off just to like kind of focus on, or
I,
just like individual days?
I think I will find myself taking time off when needed for things happening in live action life.
Mm, right, right.
When that happens, and there's a family emergency or there's something important to do, obviously time's got to be taken off. But
Mm-hmm.
um, streaming is my friends and my extended family now, and I mean, like I kind of joked about earlier, it is being hooked into the matrix, except it's the good kind that's been great for my mental health. And I know it's been the same conversation I've heard echoed to so many new streamers that are in this community, that this was the thing that helped them deal with everything going on. It gave them a place to be able to socialize and make friends and feel comfortable but still in company and not feel completely alone. And I think that's important. I think that's the most important part about how this community has been able to mesh. Yeah,
So you want to be able to integrate your real life with like streaming now, like being able to have a
I think
schedule.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously, if a job comes up and it will give me more stability in life, I'm gonna have to restructure my whole streaming schedule. But there is no way I would ever get rid of it completely right now.
Hmm.
In my brain, it's not an option. I
Absolutely.
very much want to I very much want to be here and um, enjoy being around the people that that I'm like they are friends. I've made some incredible friends. Again, you bang the drum, the song of your people, and the people that you get along with best show up. And it's really cool how that's happened.
It is really cool to see how your stream has evolved. I've ever since I rated you to now, like I've noticed that like you just more and more energy per stream just keeps
Yeah, right.
piling up. Like, and
Yeah.
it seems like
Kind of the chat's fault too. Like it's
yeah.
getting
I
more
mean,
busy. I don't know.
damn it, chat. I
It's
mean,
good.
it's great. It's awesome just to see how influential these random usernames can be, and
Mhm.
how they encourage more of your energy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How you feel like you want to invest more into them,
Hmm.
just by like the feedback that they're giving, and
Yeah.
like what they want to be a part of, right?
Hmm.
So in totality, we talked a little bit about mental health for you and body scanning and just kind of being aware of, where you are in the center of this open world that you're already kind of placed in.
Yeah.
So, how do you think you might work on that, given that now we're still quarantined, we're still here in the same place doing the same shit, um, and it can drive us kind of crazy.
Oh
It
yeah.
has are there certain things that you're still doing that you're kind of working on yourself with?
Um, I would say that streaming, and this is just not me saying it because because I've been streaming so long and now I'm kind of in it, but like streaming was the thing that helped me cope. Whether that's a healthy thing or not, I mean, the jury's
Mm-hmm.
still out. But as far as it seems, I've been um, I've been able to mentally survive some really tough times in live action in 3D because I know I have this to tune into, not just me doing streaming myself, but also the people in my community who have built some really nice streams so that when I'm off, I know, oh, hey, you know, Mother Jada is
Right.
cooking something really nice that so and so redeemed. I should go see what that's looking like. Oh, someone else is playing a retro game that I used to play when I was a kid. I want to check that out. And they're really fun. Like they're really funny to talk to. Oh, that guy like loves all the same Star Wars stuff I do. I'm gonna go nerd out with him on his stream. Or like we'll have a community night where we all, they'll just invite people in to game with them on stream, and we'll just hop in on a game or two before we have to go to bed. It's just like it's built a place to come to when things are looking grim outside. And I would say, yeah, you need to find. I think my biggest piece of advice to myself would be, you know, despite that wonderful place, make sure you really know how to have your own thoughts centered, on how you feel about things, to be open emotionally, um, to be open mentally to new ideas and new people and different perspectives. Uh, Especially now that the culture is so virtually social. I think I've been more
Mm-hmm.
social than I've ever been in real life because this is real life. We keep saying my IRL friend, but honestly, an IRL friend got me into Twitch. So I was literally walked through the door, and it's still real life to me. This isn't a game or fantasy. This is really, these are people and communities that we all care very sincerely about, and we check in on each other. And I think um, sometimes that's difficult to socially navigate because some days you're having a bad day, right? And you want to still be able to listen. So, or at least help people. And some days you just need some time for you. And to know how to balance that is very difficult. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I try to do it the best I can for myself. But I find the community and the way they have been sensitive to each other um, has helped, you know, deal with
Mm-hmm.
life issues. So yeah, in terms of personal things that I've learned, I have to be honest. No, but finding a community again has been very helpful. And I would say to anybody, you know, not a doctor, but like it may be tough to socialize, but even lurking on a nice small stream where someone's crafting something or maybe playing your favorite game and you just can't sleep has been I know has been therapeutic for people. I had I the first game I started streaming was Witcher One, which is a grind of a game if you're not into fantasy or anything, right? And
Yeah.
just mechanically, even if you are into fantasy, but I had it on my list. I had to finish it, so I was playing it. And I had this person come in from Sweden. It was always late at night, and it was super late for them. And they had told me they had just come back from the hospital because they have COVID and they were recovering. And this game they used to play all the time, and they really miss it and they like it, and they just want to come and hang out and watch it because they really have good memories about the game. And that person, that was when I was started streaming. That person was hanging out, and I'm very happy and also sad to see them go, but I'm happy that the sleep schedule finally got better because they got better and they had to have a better lifestyle moving forward now that they're recovered and they're not losing sleep anymore. So they can't come to stream anymore. But I'm just so happy you're better now. I'm so happy that like in the times that you were feeling the worst, of all the streams you could have went to, you went to some dude that had like just over 100 followers, and just because
Hmm.
he was playing your favorite game, and you just wanted to spend the night listening to something you remember fondly to before while you couldn't sleep and you were coughing or whatever. So, it is important to find media, not to be addicted to it, but to find media that can at least center you a little bit and clear your head a little bit before, and then so that you can kind of meditate through it and help
Hmm.
yourself realize, you know what, I can go out and do those groceries now, or okay, now I can go fill the tank with gas. No matter how anxious I felt, I feel a little bit better now. I hung out with my friends, and it feels a little bit more okay to go do that thing, So, no.
And we, in past interviews we talked about how we've talked about how mental health aside from streaming and like separating that, like, oh, this is great, this is what we want to do, this is our career path, but we need time away from it. In fact, in this interview we've talked mostly about how it has encouraged mental health and
Yeah.
how it has encouraged I think you said it perfectly, centering your thoughts and emotions,
Mhm.
centering yourself, like it, like you're floating off. You might be having a million thoughts in your head, but you kind of feel grounded
Mhm.
when you're streaming and when you're talking to people. And I think that's really special because, that's kind of like the root of it. We're here to socialize, to interact in a time like this where, it feels like danger is everywhere, but
Yeah.
you feel safe. You
Yeah.
feel you come in here, you have that sense of security, and then you continue, and it helps balance your life out just a little bit.
Yeah.
There might be people that are up late watching you, but they feel that security, and that helps them go to sleep later on.
Absolutely.
So, so for so like two more questions, and
Yeah,
then we'll
yeah.
we'll get you
No, no
going. I
worries.
I know I know you said seven, so I'm.
No, no, no. You know what? It's totally fine. My show is late to the show for a reason.
Ha ha ha! I
like
see,
like
I see. Okay.
originally the original reason I called it late to the show entertainment was basically because I was always late to the newest social media platform. So
Oh.
when I wanted to start podcasting, I'm like, that makes sense. Everyone's already started a podcast, but now I'm doing it. Or like I was late to doing Instagram too when I did Instagram, and then like Twitch. I mean, I'm only doing it because of a pandemic now, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna keep the late to the show thing, and then it ended up me being actually like usually half an hour late, maybe an hour late to my own streams sometimes. So I was like, okay, and everyone's like, no, it's fine. That's part of your name. I'm like, okay, I'll just own it, I guess.
Oh, you get away with so much shit, man. I swear.
So much.
So for okay, so here's the funny part about this. So do you have any advice for like new gamers Well, I was gonna start with streamers because I was hoping you would say don't be late, but I think I got to my own punchline there. So for new gamers that are like 5 or 6 years old, 8 years old, just getting their first console or PC for the first time,
Yeah.
what would be your advice for them? Just kind of just getting into these open world games.
When it comes to open world, like video games, computer games, um, I would say find, and this is going to sound like an adult thing to have to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say find specific times to play that game. Be like, especially if it may be too much for that person to plan ahead and be like, I want to be a streamer one day, but like regiment your time for your gaming so that it is done in a healthy way, but it still gives you enough time to enjoy it. So for me and my gaming, I chose a time in the week where it would not be in anyone's way if they needed me. It was,
Mm-hmm.
but it also allowed me a lot of time to not be interrupted, and it was kind of a happy place time where it's just like, right now, I can just I can just enjoy it and be immersed in it and get it finished. I can actually finish the game and not feel like, oh, this new game came out now. I'm just gonna leave halfway through this game and play something new. Um, Definitely regiment your time. Say 2-3 hours, depending on what game you're playing. Even if it's a giant MMO or something crazy there's a time sucker, find a find a time that you're gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do it every day, like say, 2 hours at this time of the day, like later on when it's not in anyone's way that's important to me, you know, because it's important not to get addicted to that stuff, or at least to let it get in the way enough because you just enjoy it too much that it,
Mm-hmm.
it starts affecting real life, because that's problematic. And because other than that, I have no problem with any kind of game. People like what you like. Just
Right.
find a good time that you can be invested in it and enjoy it, and it's not it's not perturbing other parts of your life, because
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be competitive, great. If you want to do, yeah, you're gonna have to play a different way, but yeah, you still got to balance yourself out.
Would that be the same thing for streaming? Is balancing out, other responsibilities with the stream?
I think so. I think the more important, I mean, yes, but I think the big thing I would say about streaming is don't enter it hoping to enter it with a business suit on and a tab with the Twitch analytics on all the time, or you're gonna get depressed and have a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't come in saying I'm gonna make so much money doing this. That is the wrong attitude. Twitch is you know, it's a social media platform,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it is a community building platform, and you need to want to build a community. You need to know that that is your responsibility when you come on, because no matter whether you stream once a week and you're just doing it because you have some friends that don't play the game but want to watch it or something, like no matter why you're streaming, like you should do it for fun, and other people are going to pop in your chat,
Mm-hmm.
and they, some of them are just want to see what's up, or you might just get randomly raided one day, and like you need to know how to talk to people, or at least learn how to talk to people when you are
Right.
doing it. Learn how to be welcoming. Learn how to really make sure you're addressing everybody, in a way that makes them feel warm and happy to be there, and maybe if you can kind of tell maybe someone's having a bad day and making them laugh somehow. You don't have to be a talk show host right off the bat, but you can't ignore them either. And you can't go in thinking, oh, if this person isn't investing in me, then they don't deserve to be seen. It's very, very, that's a very toxic attitude to even begin
Yeah.
streaming. You have to be there to want to go in wanting to make friends. That's the easiest way to boil this down. Go in wanting to make friends. That's why I did it. I went in because I wanted to get work done, and I knew this was like being on a TV show of some sort, but more like immersive and engaging with people, which I liked. So going wanting to make friends, wanting to meet new people, wanting to meet your people, um, that should make you comfortable enough to and make other people feel comfortable enough to come and stay and come back. That's more important. Make friends. Just make
Yeah.
friends, and it's the easiest way to make friends, I would say.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because
Especially if you're out there trying to connect with people and you have such an upbeat personality, you have a lot of energy in what you do, and you're just trying to, be a part of this bigger world. They want to do that too. I mean, as you know, like you already had an influence on people trying to create their own D&D channels because they like that atmosphere.
yeah,
So same thing with, say my interest in mental health. There's a lot of people that can relate to it,
mhm,
but it's really about, well, like let's talk about it. Like let's
mhm,
not necessarily like, oh, drop the follow, subscribe, drop the bits, whatever it is. No, it's like talk to me, man. How are you doing?
yeah,
Like, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. How? I mean, do you mind if I ask you something
yeah.
before we
Sure, go
get
for
going?
it.
Like, was the decision to stream very much similar in the way? Because I know a lot of people have gone through where it was meant to kind of focus yourself to kind of be in touch with people again despite
Hmm.
all of this, for the betterment of your mental health, or was there already sort of an idea, a sense of community you wanted to just see more of in the games that you liked, that inspired you to do it? Like, did you do this for more mental health reasons to start streaming, or did you do it more because you were interested in uh, the competitive player streamer aspect, and that like inspired you to go into it? Like, what part was more of this decision for you, if not both?
I feel like ever since Squadrons came out, so
Mhm.
I came into it more into the inhibition of spreading mental health awareness and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And there's a streamer I really like. His name is Dr. K, and I think a
Nice.
lot of people know him. He does a lot of interviews with other streamers and a lot bigger streamers, but it's more on the premise of how can I help you today,
Mhm.
right? And I thought of that as like, okay, well that's cool, but like I don't want to, like, you're not here for me to help you.
Right.
Like I'm here to learn about you. I'm
Yeah.
here to learn about the people that come here into the stream, and really like get to know people that like kind of dedicate a lot of their day into streaming.
Mhm.
So that kind of influenced my idea of like, well, I want to do some research on this
Mhm.
and see if there's any correlations between mental health, social media, and gaming, and how they all relate, and trying to see how different types of games influence different types of like inhibitions and aspirations and whatever.
Yeah.
So the squadrons community really got me back into the competitive edge because like little did I know I was gonna be a pro gamer in a game that's such a little game. Like it's I think like about our community, like, and as you know, our about our community is like, they stop by, they say hi after a game, they say GG's, they
It's
crack a
funny.
joke. It's hilarious. I'm like, I've never thought this was like gonna be a thing
And
until
I don't usually check Squadrons on Twitch to see how many people stream it. So I didn't
yeah.
realize that there was so few people streaming it.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's like you'll see individual guys with like 20, 30 people. Like you'll see Scalp with like 60 or something like.
Yeah.
But then like you still have those like guys you see on Gray Squadron or you see on Rancor or you see
Yeah.
elsewhere that just like to stream because they like that community and they want people to stop by, say hi. It's really that social aspect that gets them going, not necessarily for the follows or or for the subscriptions or nothing. It's really that small community, and uh, I've noticed that large connection into the people of the game rather than the game, and that's what's keeping Squadrons alive. It's really
True.
that community
Yeah.
that's really entangled with personality and that Star Wars, that need for competition
Yeah.
for Star Wars. But then you have the other side of it, which is Battlefront 2, and nice little republic. But it was really that niche aspect of it that really got me back in the competitive aspect. But it was the community that got me more into what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like it's a little bit of both now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh, hold on, you're crackling it a little bit.
Am I?
Yeah.
Wave my hand to make sure you're not skipping frames or something. You-
Maybe I
We
am
good?
skipping frames. I was going to ask.
I'm watching the stream. It looks pretty smooth on my end. So
Oh, you can hear it.
I can't. Oh, you mean the voice? Let me
Yeah.
see. Let me check for you. It sounds pretty smooth so far. I mean, I can
Oh,
hear you.
oh, oh. Then it's my end. Don't worry about
It
it.
might be
Okay,
your
so
end. Yeah.
don't worry about it. So my last question is, where can I find you? If I'm a person just coming out trying to find you on social media, where can I find you?
The easiest, of course, is if you use the exact channel name. I use that L2S underscore entertainment. You can. I have the same name in Instagram as well. There is also a Facebook page slash group, but admittedly, I don't use it very often. I usually just tether it to my Instagram, or I do an odd post there here and there. But the main places I'm super active on, it's here and on Instagram. Though you can see some of the artwork that I finished on stream, I will post there.
Okay.
Um, those are the main links for me. And yeah, and of course having a community now of a couple hundred. I do have a Discord too, so it's been really nice. It's really laid. I think the nice thing I like is that so many people are part of very popular Discords, or Discords that just jive with them so well already. Like
Right.
my Discord grows very very gradually, and there's not a lot of stuff like going nuts in it. So it's very easy to manage, and it's very easy for people to pop in when we're doing an event and pop out. We just started doing watch parties and things. So yeah, so it's been nice. We have a Discord, but it's nice and chill. And then we have, but mainly it's my Instagram and the Twitch channel. Yeah, yeah. And you
So
can see my social, more socials, but again, Instagram and this is the biggest ones. Yeah,
I just posted your Twitch, but you can
that's it.
find
Thank you.
so yeah, for everybody who is here, you can check out all of his socials on his Twitch page. You can find his Discord, his Twitter, all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
again, like I appreciate you coming out and talking to us about your journey as
yeah,
a streamer. Like that's huge, man. Like to talk about going from IRL like screenplays and artwork and all that stuff to taking it completely online.
yeah.
Like that's
Hook
unheard
into the
of for a lot of
matrix.
us.
Hook into
Yeah,
the
the
matrix.
fucking Matrix, man. I swear. Like all of a sudden, we're gonna see the trickling down of letters, the
Yeah,
Greek
yeah.
letters and shit.
That's
Oh
how it
my
feels
god.
sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I am gonna let you go because I know you got your stream to deal with and
No
all
worries.
that stuff. But I really appreciate you coming out
Yeah,
today
man.
and talking a
Thanks for
little bit.
inviting me. That's
Um,
really nice of you. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, anytime. And we definitely gotta play some squadrons sometime. We
Yeah,
gotta
man.
we
Yeah,
gotta
man.
do some D&D. Like
Yeah,
I
that'd be
definitely
fun.
want to be there, bro.
That'd
So
be cool.
yeah. Thank
All
you
right.
again for coming out. And I will catch you. We'll talk about the art stuff real
Okay.
soon.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
sounds good. All right.
All
See you,
right.
man.
See you, man. What a guy. What a guy. Guys, I love it, man. I love all that atmosphere of the open world and getting to know how your environment creates you even as a person. So I love it, man.